really spectacular. Just so much. And
Just really swell guys.
yeah, they're like locusts, but in a good way.
The better qualities.
Yeah.
Very fertile, numerous in nature, dedicated, let me tell you. Cool. And we're all set. Hey, people in the chat room, how's it going? Hopefully you're getting audio all nice and clear. Could you do me a favor and confirm that before we start doing this? Because once we get going, there is no stopping this goddamn train.
It is a solid rocket podcast. I'm going to make a lot of rocketry jokes that only Anthony is going to get. It's going to be awesome. See, the joke is that a solid rocket,
once you light it, it's
you
just
turn
keeps
it, it
going.
turns on. You can't control it. Yeah.
But wasn't there
That's
a
the
thing
joke.
where if
That's the joke.
But isn't there a thing where like if the SRB like, well, I don't know if this still applies or not, but if it like tilted over or something and just started shooting into unwashed Orlando, they can just like blow it like
Yeah.
boom.
Oh, yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, any rocket they launch and anywhere has a guy. It's called the range safety officer.
Yep.
His job is he has like a plot and it's got 2 lines on it, and if the rocket, especially for the unmanned stuff, goes out of that line, there's a button.
Yep.
I think it's 2 buttons. Because
is it like a turn your key, sir, sort of scenario?
no, I think you have to lift up a little flappy thing.
Oh shit!
Well,
I didn't realize it was so difficult.
Yeah.
The thing is that for Challenger, that button was pressed, right? Because it did fly out of its quarter.
Because they have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hi, party people. All right, let's get started here.
Yeah. You need 2 buttons. Sometimes I regret sending a text. So
The are you sure is always a good thing when in rocketry.
I have undo set up on my Gmail. Do you guys have that set up? Where it's one of the labs thing that you can add to your Gmail, where it basically when you click send, it puts it on a countdown timer, and you have 30 seconds or 10 or 5 or however many seconds you want to click undo, and then if you just navigate back to the inbox, it's like, all right, sending. But it basically gives you that last like 30 seconds. Oh shit, typo, undo.
I do have that, but I think it's only like 5 seconds.
Yeah,
so
I have mine set for like weeks. Like it's, I want to give myself every opportunity.
The only problem is nobody ever gets back to me.
All right, let's do this. I think enough has been said to clarify the audio is in fact coming through, so we're good. Let's do this shit. Nifty. It's gonna be the Warner Brothers logo, you guys. Cool. Yeah.
Nifty 50.
Nifty 50. I'm gonna do one last adjustment here. All right, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What Are You Doing Movie. Go ahead and pop in your DVD or Blu-ray of Gravity. Press play and press pause when the Warner Brothers logo fades to black. At the first frame you perceive of all black, press pause. In a second, I'll say 3, 2, 1, unpause, at which point I'll press play, and you'll press play, and we'll watch the movie together in perfect sync. It'll be like any other commentary, except, of course, with 4 friends in your head, one of whom is an ISS mission controller dude from NASA with very fancy jeans and a good haircut. And it's truly an impressive sight.
All government supplied.
They are nice jeans, actually.
Thank you.
$50,000.
They're titanium alloy.
$50,000.
Same material space shuttle uses.
Myself, as always, Teague Christie, my friend Brian William Fenifter.
Greetings.
Michael Dorkman Scott. And introducing
It's my Sandra Bullock impression.
Anthony Vareha, who works in NASA as a ISS flight controller guy for... I used to know the name of it, too. Spartan?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Spartan, which it stands for a thing, and I don't know honestly what that is.
That's how I am with SHIELD.
The P is power, I think. But yeah, no, I work out at Johnson Space Center for your International Space Station, your local International Space Station.
I saw that crossing over the other day, a week ago. It was
brightest thing in the sky next to the moon. Stupid moon.
It was bright as hell. I'm used to.
It's brighter than Venus.
It is brighter than Venus. The only thing, moon and the sun.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that's cheating.
Yeah, exactly. It brings it.
That has massive size and proximity.
Absolutely. No,
it's a handicap.
Really cool to see when it comes over.
Yeah, man. And I'm used to like living out in the boonies where you can see satellites going by all the time, but they're like dim star going by. That was really, even in Los Angeles, where I still can't see my neighbor. It's brighter than anything. Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
It's something to see.
It's cool, man. So Gravity came out. When the trailers started popping up, at the time the trailers started popping up, it was looking like it was going to be like this little indie release sort of thing where I remember like sending Brian a link to this, like, Warner Brothers just posted this trailer. I haven't seen it linked anywhere, but watch this shit. And it's right off the bat, it looks like the best thing that could possibly happen in my life. Brian's thing was always that he wanted sci-fi movies to be at a standard of where it's like just Apollo 13 but fictional, but just that, please. Just give me something with that level of clarity and realism and stakes and inherent tension, because you're in a goddamn vacuum, you guys. And this looked for all the world like it was going to be that. And indeed, aside from some quibbles that people have, and I think rightly so, this is just a hell of a movie. And for all the praise or self-praise Avatar gave itself, for it being like the new Star Wars and this new cinematic experience that changes the way you see movies forever, I don't think Avatar really gets the cred for that one. And I think Gravity, which never made those proclamations about itself, totally does. I think, especially, I saw this twice in the theaters. I saw it once 2D in a normal-sized theater like a chump, and then I saw it again in 3D at the IMAX screen at City Walk. And what was weird was I bought the tickets like 2 days in advance after it had been out for like 3 weeks, and I couldn't get a good seat at all. I was in the bottom right corner of an IMAX theater, which means there's like a 130-foot tall screen 4 feet in front of me, and I'm just like at the bottom right corner, like a little footnote, like an asterisk down there. And what was so weird was, with the unbelievably uncomfortable seating arrangement and the 3D and the giant screen, and I was like tilting my head up, something about the way the stereoscopics worked just made me feel really like I was in it, like more than when you're watching a 3D movie in that little frame and it's like, oh, I can see it down there. It's 3D looking. When I was wrapped in this movie, it was a really jarring, unnerving experience, which, you know, I feel like the way Jim Cameron said that you have to see Avatar in 3D, I think Alfonso Cuarón said something about you have to see Gravity in IMAX 3D from 2 inches away. I feel like that's the best way to watch it. But it blew me away. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. Walked away with the VFX Oscar, and rightly so. And it's damn good. Now, my problems with it are there's generally an on-the-nose dialogue thing going on here, but I tend to give that to Cuarón because everything else about what he does is so fantastic. And also there's the whole thing where from like Jump Street, when I walked out the first time I saw it, in fact, while I was watching it, I had a really odd time trying to accept the physics of the cliffhanger, you know, vertical limit scene where George is under tension.
Yeah.
And like the first thing I thought at the time was, well, if the thing's rotating,
Which it is.
that would make sense.
It is.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's totally not.
Yes, it is.
We'll watch and see.
Yes, we will.
I double
We'll
checked
get it. We will get a professional opinion. But I thought the same thing. That was the only bit that pulled me out of the movie as I was watching the first time. But then I was like, maybe it's rotating and maybe that's okay. And then I went back and rewatched it and it's not really.
Maybe you could
but
say
maybe
the stars
it
are kind of
is.
moving a little, but it's not like you'd expect it to be rotating much faster than that. In
When
any
it
case,
comes up, we'll look.
we'll talk about it. But
We'll settle it
fucking,
once for
I
all.
loved Gravity for the most part, and it's one of those movies that Dorkman bought it on 3D Blu-ray, even though he doesn't have a 3D player, because it's an aspirational.
And probably never will.
It's an
but-
aspirational purchase where it's just like it's sort of like Prometheus, except you can listen to this one too, in addition to watching it. You put it on the TV like it's just a glorious picture that just sits there and loops all the time. And it's beautiful, and I'm super psyched to have Anthony.
Yeah, you could. If like there are people who like have parties where they just kind of put you can
a
get
thing on.
videos like IMAX, you know, just something pretty on the
Baraka
TV
or something.
You
Yeah.
could totally do this. You could totally almost put this on and just have it playing in the background and then freak out your guests when things start to go really wrong.
Chad Peter used to make custom DVDs for parties where he'd just pick the best scenes, and sometimes they were like really horrifying or disgusting or saw or
Yeah.
something, and just string out like 2 hours worth of 4-minute scenes and just play them totally out of context. And Chad's taste in movies led to it being mostly scenes you'd never seen before that completely devastated the tone of the party because people would just stand around the TV watching it like it was on fire or something.
Because the whole point was like not get drawn into a full movie like you do sometimes.
Yeah, you don't want to get drawn
at a
into it. You don't want to
party.
script the party, and then he just plays scenes from Bug.
But then you get drawn into these horrible scenes.
I've been to bars that actually a particular bar in Pennsylvania that only showed like and I've been there on a couple occasions and maybe I just was there on the wrong nights, but all it did was show like disparate scenes from Koyaanisqatsi and just and boy does that
That'll put you in the
bring
mood to-
down the house.
yeah, oh yeah. Can I get a vodka cranberry? And I don't want to just bring it over to me. I don't want to break my attention here.
You're right,
This is-
exactly.
Brian,
I'm really drawn into this African tribe.
Yeah.
I have to assume your story of excitement with Gravity started before the movie came out as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said,
Did you see it and
this
start
is what I
fanning
said.
yourself like an antebellum South like nice lady, like ooh?
I knew it. I knew it was a
declare.
He
thing.
had the vapors.
He had the vapors.
I knew Cuarón was making a movie, a science fiction movie in space, and that was it for me. I was completely sold as it was. And then our friend Travis actually posted the first trailer to my Facebook page, and it was that was I didn't even know it was like contemporary, that it was space shuttle and space station until that trailer. And then I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going on media lockdown on this. I don't want another frame of this. I don't want to look at it because I know I'm going to watch the hell out of it when
You're
it
like
comes.
2319.
Yeah. So I basically did that as best I could. I watched that first trailer and that was it. And then when it finally opened,
Wise choice.
yeah. because they released like the first
They started
like
showing clips.
10 minutes or something of the
Well,
movie,
they
whatever it was.
released the very next trailer they released was the
Like
2
two
minute
unbroken minutes.
Yeah.
It was the 2 minute clip of the destruction of Explorer.
Yeah.
And then she
Did
gets
not
knocked
need-
out, and it's when it follows her. I think the trailer ends with her going out.
It ends with her being flung off into space, which is a great place to leave a trailer, certainly. And then
Right.
the next trailer was the subsequent 2 minutes of her.
I
So,
avoided
yeah.
all of that. Avoided all of it on purpose. And then I loved it. And everything you said. It's easily one of my most favorite films of all time, and it was the very instance.
But it was
a
cheating.
film.
It's like the sun is cheating. It's like it's really bright in the sky. Well, it
Yeah.
is huge and really bright and really close.
But
Gravity's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
No shit.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. And that being said, there are little quibbles. Like the first 5 minutes. I will tell you, the first time watching the first 5 minutes for the first time, I was like, uh-oh. Could this be the Phantom Menace of my adult's life? But obviously, it didn't turn out.
What
to
were
be
you
that
worried
way.
about?
Just like I think
The really ham-fisted dialogue.
The first 5 minutes is just really ham-fisted all around. The dialogue,
She's a surgeon, and
the situation, yeah,
Right.
and I'm sure we can go into all those technical details
Oh,
if
we
we
will.
want to. But once the actual movie starts, it's amazing. And did you really expect me to say anything else?
This is one of the only movies I can think of where saying it's an amazing ride is not a backhanded sort of dismissive compliment. Where it's like it's an amazing ride.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
this is one of the only movies I can think of where saying that I
It's a
mean it.
compliment, and you mean it.
I mean it like literally. I mean, I seriously feel like this is a ride film. Like I
Right.
need to hold on because my chair is going to move around.
It's
And
funny.
It's not, but
One of the trailers for this, it may have been the first one, came out during a week when we found ourselves in the position where we were doing an emergency spacewalk. So that was a little weird because it's like, oh, we got to send the crew out the door. Hey, what's this? Oh.
I wonder if NASA was getting tweets like "Hill
Okay.
Corporate, this is totally just something you're doing for gravity."
Yeah,
to-
exactly.
Like there's wackos on Twitter. Oh,
Here's what we're
nice,
gonna do.
Nice guys.
Yeah, Chris Hadfield trying to get more Twitter followers.
here's what we're going to do. We're not going to tell the guys that this movie came out.
Well, it's funny, so the crew on board station, they watch movies. They have actually a DVD library, but that's given way to we uplink stuff to them. And a couple years ago, they called down. They were watching movies on Saturday night. Multinational crew. We give them their weekends off. They have time to do what they want. Saturday night, what do they choose to watch? 2001, where the computer kills all the astronauts. Well, that's a great thing to turn out the lights to when you live in space.
Yeah, just can you pull the blinds down? The Earth is too bright out there. It's just
Gotta-
screwing. It's
gotta
I'm
go
getting
to the
a
movie
reflection.
room,
I'm getting a
yeah.
little reflection. Dorkman, gravity, gravitas.
Yeah, I knew that my experience with it was, of course, I'm, nuts about all things Quaron, or at least most things Quaron.
Corone is the reason. Corone is the why.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's my absolute favorite filmmaker. He was before this, but now for serious. So I knew that he was working on, like Brian said, I knew he was working on some kind of sci-fi movie. I was a little concerned about it because I heard that he was, his thing is long takes, and I heard that he was working on like a big 17-minute take, and I was thinking, he's just doing it, his thing now. He's just doing it to like find out if he can or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not really going to be appropriate or whatever. So I was a little concerned that he was just taking that which to an extent he is. He was doing it. He is experimenting with that every time he does it, but it is fortunately totally appropriate in this film to do things that way. So I was glad to see that. And ultimately I was just like, oh, please. I tell everybody all the time how much I love Alfonso Cuarón. Don't fucking don't make me take it back. Don't make me be like, hey, it's okay. He'll do another one. It'll be fine. So I was a little nervous about it in that sense. And then the first trailer came out, and I was like, okay, it looks pretty cool. I never really get excited about his movies as trailers. I wasn't.
Him and Pixar.
Yeah, I like the trailer for Children of Men when that came out. I was like, a lot of people got excited about him. I'm like, I don't see what you're also excited about, but I like him as a director, so I'll go for it. I was kind of the same way about Gravity. I did see the 2-minute the destruction of Explorer. The first time I saw that scene was on YouTube, and I was pissed off at myself for like 2 weeks that I saw that, and so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna watch anything else. But that did give me the knowledge of kind of what we were dealing with here to go to look at it. And when he in interviews, because as Teague points out, everybody goes, oh, you really need to see my movie in 3D, but when he says it, I'm like, I believe him.
You have credibility.
I actually believe him. And so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do it, if any movie is going to work in 3D, it's going to be Gravity, and it absolutely does. It's the only movie I've ever seen where I told people, you really do have to see this in 3D if you really want to appreciate it.
I'm not kidding, and I will stop being your friend.
Yeah, which we can get into as we go. But and by the way, Teague, the reason that it's a more intense experience when you sit closer is because the disparity between the two images and between your perspective is larger the closer you sit to it, so there's more of a feeling of depth.
And do your eyes cross or go wall-eyed when you're watching 3D? You're crossing them, right?
Ideally neither. Ideally, you're just
you're watching the screen layer. Dorkman worked in stereoscopic for a while.
Well, let's talk about this when the movie's actually playing, because we've already gone for like half an hour.
Exactly. Well, it's fun.
But yeah, I'll just let the movie play. I love it. There are some quibbles with it, which we can get into, but none of the quibbles are with the craft of it at all.
Right. The filmmaking part.
Yeah.
Already before we've gotten started, there's already a couple of things from what Anthony was saying earlier. One is watching, as Mushroomer says, watching 2001 on the ISS sounds a lot like watching The Thing in Antarctica. And also, Faldor asked, how big is the TV screen on the ISS?
Well, they have laptops. They don't have
nice.
a TV, but yeah, they just have standard laptops. We stream video to them, both for work purposes, and then on the weekends we uplink live TV to them as long as the right satellites are in range. So they basically
Breaking Bad, probably.
But whenever they.
What did they think of the How I Met Your Mother finale?
They wouldn't talk to us for 3 days. It was extremely disturbing.
Well, hi, Anthony.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
It is good to be here.
I was telling you before we started recording, it's like, I know you from Brian's short film Thanksgiving with the Grances.
Yeah, it's my seminal work.
Yeah, man.
But no, yeah, I am very happy to be here. I'm glad you guys invited me along. I really love it.
What was your read on Gravity? Were you psyched about it in the sort of lead up?
So I was excited for 2 reasons. Number one, I was a big fan of the completion of the Miss Congeniality trilogy, and I was really wanted to see how that play out. And I think it was probably as we'll see today, the most realistic of the 3.
I love you. Come back every week.
And second, I'm all excited about anything that reminds folks, hey, there's people who live in space. Hey, we have a space station. Especially, as I'm watching in the trailers the destruction of the International Space Station, it is a self-serving thought of, oh, well, hey, people are going to see we have a space station. That's pretty cool. And so then, so that was my starting thought.
They always destroy the Empire State Building,
exactly.
then people go.
Yeah. And so then, after that, I went through a phase as I was hearing more and more about the movie and more about, as we'll discuss, the technical quibbles with the movie. That was coloring my opinion of it. And also the fact of we had, last summer we had an incident on a spacewalk where we almost drowned a guy named Luca Parmentano, I didn't. I thought that, especially going to see it maybe in 3D or something like that, would maybe not be like a super fun experience because while telling a good story, it is also maybe necessarily telling like the story of the worst possible day of my job.
Yeah.
And so, it's something we worry about. There is, and we'll get into this, space debris is out there. I'm in town. The reason I'm here is I'm in town for a conference for space operations, and space debris is one of the big things folks are talking about. How do we clean up this graveyard so that we don't have this chain reaction? They call it,
yeah, well, it's got a name. This
Kessler
scenario,
the Kessler syndrome.
Yeah.
Kessler syndrome,
which is a weird name for it, but that's fine. Where you can basically ruin an orbit, and we have to fire thrusters to get out of the way of stuff fairly regularly, maybe once every couple of months.
Oh wow!
So it's a thing.
Is it? Do you feel like it's getting? It's becoming a larger and larger topic. It's getting more, airtime, so to speak.
Yes, I think honestly, I think Gravity. I think there was a congressional hearing this week about the subject of space junk and who's going to clean that up and how to clean that up. And
do you think Gravity?
It was
helped?
most certainly stimulated by that.
Cool.
Thanks, Alfonso.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah,
Space
thanks
recycling, man.
Thanks for clearing up space for the rest of us. But yeah, again, as a NASA guy, I think it's anything that gets people thinking about space, and even a functionally but not physically semi-realistic interpretation of what is actually up there, that's pretty cool, and that's exciting. And to hear about how interested people were in a story about the perils and triumphs of space travel, that's pretty cool. So and it also helped that when it did come out in theaters, I was on furlough, so one of the local theaters actually said, well, if you're a NASA employee and you don't have anything else to do, you can come see it in 3D for free.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
So
nice.
just show up with your badge, and that was nice.
Oh.
And that's how he met your mother. Anyway, you're at the
Exactly.
point where the Warner Brothers logo has faded to black, like I am here. Put your finger on the button.
Ready to start?
3, 2, 1, unpause, and we're in.
Okay, so actually, my biggest beef with the movie, in a way, is these cards.
The font is kind of weird. I agree.
It's not my and actually it's just the last one because it misses an opportunity to kind of state the theme right up front. Because what it says is life in space is impossible. What I think it should say is life in vacuum, or life in the vacuum is impossible, because that's really a large part of what this movie is about, is the fact that on a story level, on a human level, the story is about connecting with other people and how important that is to being able to live your life, and to really having value in your life is the connection with other people around you, and the
Man being an island.
yeah, and the crisis of being cut off
Yeah.
from that. In this, it's literally being cut off, but it's a representation, as we've discussed around this, and as we'll discuss here, for being emotionally cut off because you're depressed or in mourning, or the various problems that she's going through, and the problems that you go through in a crisis where you feel alone, and then you have to find a way to reach out to other people.
I just want to do a parody of the title sequence where it says life in space is really hard, and then it slam cuts to tardigrades. One of the things, I was listening to a DP30 interview with Alfonso, and I say Alfonso because I'm not comfortable doing the Cuarón thing. Cuarón. See, I screwed it up. He said that when he sat down to do this, initially he had seen a script, I think, that his son had written. The other Cuarón.
He thought this was going to be a little thing.
Well, yeah,
That's what's great.
He had seen a thing that his son had written that was in some way along the same lines, and it inspired him. He's like, I want to do something like that too. We should write a thing together. And they sat down and decided, what do we want to do, and kind of came up with the disaster in space thing. And then he sat down and tried to figure out what the theme was. He started with a theme first. And I was like, booyah. And of course, it's totally obvious that this is a theme about redemption and all that stuff. And then Alfonso proceeded to say, it's a movie about obstacles. And I was like, what? Well,
All movies are obstacles.
okay. Anyway, does anyone overcome them? That'd be crazy. Like, we haven't, but I was just surprised that when he sat down and came up with the theme, it was obstacles. And maybe, I'm sure it's intentional. It's not like he made any part of this movie by accident, but it's so clearly more than just that. Like, that's kind of almost like reductionary to say it's about obstacles. Yet that was the thing that he said it was about.
He said that in that particular interview, but he said in other ones that it's about rebirth, and it's about
And one of them he said it was
connection
about
and stuff
Fraggle
like that.
Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
He was really, just
He
exploring.
was just
the
high
themes.
on that time for that interview.
So there's a funny story that they tell in the behind the scenes where because this is all digital and stuff, they were doing playback, and someone was showing off like how the playback works, and how, I mean, simple stuff, you can like flop the image and turn it upside down and stuff like that, and it sometimes helps to look at particularly visual effects in a different perspective, because then suddenly things that you hadn't noticed before will pop out at you because you're just so used to seeing the shots,
Yeah, you're not really looking at it.
Yeah.
Because you've looked at it 100 times already.
Exactly. And so they're like, oh, let's just turn the can we see it upside down? So they did. They started playing the shot upside down, and he was like, that's awesome. Can we just do it like that? But only the first part of the shot, like as it approaches stone, you'll see the camera kind of slowly rotate and flip back over, so that's when it goes back to the way the shot was originally planned. But the first half of the shot has been turned upside down. And then, but unfortunately, because they have to rotate, like here it comes, but because they have to rotate it, they actually it took like another 2 months to render these frames over again so they could get all the extra stuff around the edges of the frame as it spins. But that's totally the kind of thing that happens where you're just like kidding around and fucking around in dailies, and someone's like, "Oh, that's great." You're like, "Oh shit."
Oh,
We
they just made a shit ton
All right,
more work.
Yeah.
Jerry, you are fired. Never talk in dailies
Yeah.
again.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
It's pronounced Sandra.
There's a lot of I mean, obviously there's an issue with just on a purely writing level. There's an issue with, as you know, the reason you're up there is because we want you to.
Because
they're like-
this mission is about plot
Yeah,
exposition.
Because they're both like, yes, I did know that.
which
Yeah.
which yeah, and which kind of doesn't even matter. And there's more elegant ways to put it, but the important thing to understand is that she is not really an experienced astronaut, because that's an important part of her journey, is that she being the only one who survives, she's got a lot more to overcome than the people who have kind of trained for this much longer.
Yeah.
And I recognize that's very implausible. Like, why would you send her up there? Why wouldn't you just train a proper astronaut
Well, they sent up Bruce.
to do
Yeah,
this work?
we largely just pull for the astronaut corps. We just pull from drillers.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, man.
Yeah,
So,
Professional
but-
wrestler.
There was a documentary about that in like '98.
My question is, in a more realistic way, from your perspective, is there some way that they could have still gotten essentially this same character up there in a more realistic way? That's not like, yeah, you're a doctor or whatever, and you made a thing or whatever, and now you're in space or whatever. Like,
yeah. I mean, so there are certain aspects of this where you can get away with that. I mean, if you accept the idea that you can jump from the shuttle to the station or whatever, she would have had very little training on station. You know,
Yeah.
so you can accept the idea of you may not know what to do once you get to that stage. But certainly the idea, I think at some point they say she's been training for 6 months for this mission. That is
not
implausible. And so, you know, the idea of them finding out about each other through this, like, do you have any kids or something like that? Like I mean, these guys live, eat, sleep, breathe this mission as they get ready for it for years and years. So-
yeah. I mean, it's not like you made the joke about Armageddon, but even that is almost more justified, because it's like, oh, we're in a desperate situation and we really need this. But this isn't a desperate situation. They didn't like have a time
Right.
frame that they really had to get just specifically her up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of my legitimate quibbles, in the sense that it is unnecessary, because it
That's
could
a
just
set-
be her. It could
Set
just
up
be
with
her.
the bolt there
Yeah,
for later.
it could just be her first mission, and then
Yeah.
you know she could
And
still
that-
have been
that's
training,
legit. You know?
and that's legit. So she's still like, yeah, holy crap, I'm up here. And then like Anthony says, once she gets to the space station, if she hadn't been trained on the space station, she would still be out of her element.
So here comes the cloud of debris. You know, that's legit. That's a thing. You know, we get messages from our trajectory operations officer, which usually starts with basically they get a phone call from effectively NORAD. I think it's called Spacecom or Stratcom, something like that. That says, hey, there's a thing happening. It's coming at you, and you should probably move. And that is you know, that's legit. We get those messages all the time, and they calculate the probabilities it's going to hit or something like that. But you know, you don't want to screw around with it. We can handle debris at a very small, like, you know, pea size or below, and that's what the station is armored for. And then anything above that, you know, we gotta move.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard one of the astronauts was telling me he was, you know, in the pressurized module at one night. Everybody else was asleep. It's very quiet on station, and he just, you know, he's quietly in there doing whatever, and he just hears ka-ping, and he just stops, kind of looks around. My ears aren't popping. Okay. And that's just the world he lives in.
Are we still pressurized?
Yeah.
Is
there-
Okay.
is
Okay.
it-
All right.
Okay.
And then like that was late at night, right? So then does he go to bed 5 minutes later? Like, because so there was like an earthquake the other day, a short, you know, a fairly minor one, but it was late at night and I was in bed and I didn't go to bed for a while.
So I didn't know that earthquake had happened, and I've never been in an earthquake, and I think I was on a bus at that point, and I guess I just felt the bus.
yeah,
that's-
the thing. If you're in a car and you're driving, you probably won't feel an
Missed
earthquake.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sorry.
Unless it's a good one.
Yeah, unless it's friggin' San Francisco and the bridges are collapsing, then you're not gonna. The only problem is that thematically, with what we're talking about, thematically they needed her not to want to be up there, essentially,
Which is
Right.
which is not never.
we have ways
yeah.
of taking care of that, which is we don't send you up there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the one implausible thing that story logic dictates it needs to be there, because the story of her journey is that she is just as Trey pointed out in the forums, and I want to get that out there because it was a really cool insight. Her journey is that she is up there, but she doesn't want to be there. She's not enjoying her time up there, and they're making the point with Sharif. He's like, "Isn't this fucking crazy? It's so much fun."
He's like
and
the
she's
portal
like,
space robot.
while meanwhile, in this, practically in the same frame, she's going, "This is not fun at all. I don't," and not appreciating what's going on. Later on, she has her conversation about, she gets in the car and just drives, which is literally, she is going nowhere in her life. She's just going through the motions, and by the end, she comes to say literally, it doesn't matter what happens to me, it's just going to be a hell of a ride. And that's the statement of the theme throughout this movie. So that needs to be there for an arc, and unfortunately I don't think there's any way to justify that realistically with what you would actually do.
Well, you could. I mean, you could just broaden it a little bit. I mean, obviously this character is depressed, but it could simply be that she's very depressed. I mean, depressed people, well, I mean, I guess that's still a psychological thing that they probably want to avoid.
She's more in mourning than depressed.
But at this point, she's on the spectrum to the point where she literally is saying she doesn't want to be up here. Where if it could be a thing where she's just not feeling any of the wonder and not enjoying any of the even the small things. Obviously, you got a job to do, but even like a cursory appreciation for what's going on, that could be enough. And then with dialogue.
If the tragedy with her daughter had maybe happened right before this,
See, and this would be my solution. And it may still not be perfect, but to have the tragedy happen in the process of her training.
Yeah,
and
then
she's still in
it's
the
like,
pipeline, and it's
actually,
she's
I'll
far
do you
enough
one
along.
better, because I'm assuming realistically NASA would say, you know what, your kid just died. We're not sending you up in 3
Yeah,
weeks.
we're gonna give you a little bit of.
Her kid dies while she's up there.
We've had
but then she doesn't have enough time to be. She has to have been on this path for a while.
we've had
Maybe.
crew members whose close family members have died while they've been up on orbit.
Yeah, because
We've
they're
given
on
their
the station
time.
station
Absolutely.
towards like 6 months.
It's
Yeah,
6 months at a time. I do. It's interesting that the call went up to the ISS. They just had ISS mission abort. In real life,
Abort being there.
The ISS they would call back and go, what does that mean?
what are we doing?
That's not a thing. Okay.
Abort house.
So number one technical issue, you don't see it coming.
yeah.
It's going like 6,000 miles an hour,
Yeah,
right?
it is. Oh, I mean, it depends on what relative orbit it is, but it is
Hauling ass.
the speed that you're talking about. Relative. It is highly unlikely, especially a cloud like that. No, you're not gonna see it coming. It'll just be there.
It will just have already been there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like what I've read about the asteroid that killed the dinos. Like you see, like the concept art that's the giant fireball descending slowly through the sky. It's like no, the thing exploded before anybody had any conception
They do
it was
not.
there.
The dinosaurs do not have time to think about it.
Yeah.
What's
Tell
one thing
my
that's
wife I said hello.
I want to point out that's really great about this scene.
This
I mean,
is so
everything.
freaking gorgeous.
Everything is great about the scene. When I was watching this, I remember the situation just deteriorates more and more and more, which is fantastic. And one of the times I saw this in theaters, when she got hit by the arm and then she really starts spinning. Some women just went, "Oh Jesus!" Like she was just so over it. Like how fucked up can this possibly?
Already, this is only like 30 seconds into the shit.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, it's just getting worse and worse.
Here's a question I have actually for you, Anthony. Wouldn't she want to stay on the arm because it's a larger thing that she would rotate more slowly and she'd be more visible?
Yeah, I would think so. You probably are. I mean, the arm's going to go where it's going to go. It's not helping yourself to disconnect from it.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. I hadn't thought about it, but that makes good sense.
I should plan spacewalks.
Yeah. So that was the end of the one big shot. I want to say one of the things that really
Ryan
makes
starts a White House petition.
the thing that really makes that scene work, that we don't often get a chance to talk about enough on this show, but in particular for this movie, is the music. The music
this is a badass score.
The music is doing something amazing in that scene, which I love. The music in general is designed like echoes or like kind of a Doppler, like things passing you, which I love. That design of it. And for that scene, and also the destruction of the ISS later, there's this aspect of what Stephen Price did, which is really cool, is instead of instead of the music like getting faster and faster like you would often do, the music stays at almost a precise rate. It's almost like a metronome. It's really which gives it this sense of a ticking clock and like inevitability.
Yeah.
And
Nothing you can do will change this.
yeah, nothing you can do will change this. It's just coming at you. There's more and more instruments being added on all the time, kind of like the debris cloud, coalescing. But the tempo doesn't change. In fact, the only time the tempo changes is it actually gets a bit slower when the explorer is hit, because it's to emphasize the size of the whole world is turning now, and then it speeds back up. And the only thing about it is also when major events happen, wherever they happen in this kind of metronome pace, it interrupts and resets, and the metronome kind of starts over. So there's this kind of jumpy wave of doing it. It does it in that scene, and it does it in the ISS scene. And I really wanted to call that out because I was like, that is an amazing thing that
nobody.
I'm glad you did,
Nobody will
because
notice.
people
Yeah.
tend to, if they have any memory of the score, they tend to remember the gigantic E.S. Posthumous Avatar song at the end of it, which I think is a little much anyway, but the sort of ongoing score of the entire film is awesome.
Yeah,
and
it's
a really cool car album to listen to.
Yeah.
So at this point, realistically, you can't jump to another spacecraft.
Sure.
So my question to you guys is,
says you, not with that attitude.
yeah, I'd be interested in your opinions on if this movie was her and George Clooney were cut off from the ship and they had 2 hours left of all their oxygen and consumables, and that was it, and it was just them alone, and they could talk to each other and couldn't talk to the ground for some reason. Is that an interesting movie?
I would love that. movie.
I would love the hell out of that.
I'm
I
writing a movie
originally
like that.
thought-
Don't
I
tell
made a
anybody,
musical
but-
like
When
that.
I first saw like the write-ups and the trailer for it, where the shuttle gets destroyed,
You thought that's
I
where it was
thought
going?
that was what that was going to be. I'm like, so it's like 127 hours in
Yeah,
space.
it's open water basically.
yeah, exactly.
Plus, the VFX gets a lot easier over the course of the
right,
thing.
and that's unfortunately a more realistic movie, but I think that's an interesting story to tell.
Was there a thing of this one where Neil deGrasse Tyson had a problem with the stars, or was that just Titanic?
I know it's Lecture on Titanic, that's for sure.
I think this.
He
I
did,
have to imagine
he did
they-
tweet a bunch
No,
of
this one they were
things.
very
I have to
particular about.
imagine, yeah.
They made sure they got the stars. That they got the major stars right.
Yeah, Sandra
Um,
and George.
If they put in, I don't know much about like astronomy other than it's there, but if they put any of the work into star fields that they did in trying to make the ISS at least externally look right, then those stars are probably as good as anything
Yeah.
you'll see.
They're more accurate than the actual goddamn
in the
star.
so-called
It's the
sky.
Pleiades,
Right.
They say those
No,
are
those are the Pleiades.
aren't
the,
they?
those are the real stars, and those are the real stars that you would see wherever they are, because they plotted out where they are over the Earth and what time of day, and all of that. So they were very particular about that because
So-
they have them moving in and out of light. The only thing is that the actual stars are kind of layered in multiple times to really give it the because
Clouds are so cool.
to give it the feel of
Depth,
depth.
Which
but
that
not
wouldn't
actually
happen.
depth. Yeah. So that means
Well, not of depth, but just once you're out there, it's like you can see nothing but friggin' stars. And they're
Right.
like, well, we don't have those images. We don't have those images, so we have to just kind of make it up to make sure.
Oh,
that-
I see what you're saying. So because you can see way more stars in orbit than you can from the ground.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
they added. There
Right.
are real stars, and then they added a bunch to
Right.
fill it out.
That is a true statement, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That they say that it's remarkable how much more you can see.
Yeah, is it in Apollo 13 or From the Earth to the Moon? It's one of the two where they talk about you never see more stars than when you're flying on the dark side of the moon.
Oh yeah,
And
and I don't doubt.
That's
I
for
mean,
miles and miles. isn't
that's
it?
why they're putting the James Webb Space Telescope there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the theories behind it.
They're putting
Yeah.
the web behind the moon. I didn't know that.
That's at
Oh,
a
yeah.
Lagrange point.
At a Lagrange point. So
L
there's actually I'll
4?
try to find it. I don't know which
I
one.
think.
But there's a proportionate diagram of, okay, here's the moon or here's the Earth, and then 50 pixels to the right is the moon,
Right.
and that's proportional to the actual distance, and then way on the other side of the screen is the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's just the actual ratio, like how far it's going to be out there in comparison is insane.
You can see the moon moving against the stars. That is so cool. Pretty.
Yeah.
So for anyone who may not know. Although I feel like this movie compelled a lot more people to really seek out the behind the scenes, like how in the hell. It's a really fascinating way that they made this movie, because you would think it's, these guys in spacesuits on green screen or whatever, and then they did a lot of work. But ultimately, this is practically an animated movie. All that's really real are their faces. They performed this on a stage, and you can look at the behind the scenes, and it's really amazing the stage that they built. They basically put them in kind of proxy clothing so that the shadows would be cast on them properly, and then they figured out ahead of time what the shots were going to be, obviously, and what their surroundings and stuff were going to be, and they programmed them into this light box that they stood inside, and then they ran then they would run the shots. The shots were run on a really advanced motion control thing that could control not only the camera but them, and also the lights and stuff like that. It's called the Bot and Dolly system, and they would do that. They would perform it, and they would have the light box actually reflect, or not reflect, but show and bounce the proper light off them of what was actually around them, which they said helped their performances immensely because they could actually see what they were supposed to be
Yeah,
doing.
so like
They
for
basically
example,
put
when
them in
she's
a real life HDRI globe.
yeah, and when she's floating inside the space stations, and it's just her, she's not in a spacesuit anymore. She's actually seeing a representation of the set around her.
And that's an important thing to note as well. It's when she's flying around in the space station, there was no space station.
Yeah.
Like even when she's out of the suit, it's still a digital environment.
This movie, so up to from the beginning, from here up to the point where she finally gets into the space station and takes off her spacesuit, is the first time in a long, long time where I was watching a movie and I went, I have no idea how they did that, because I didn't know about the light box at the time.
Yeah.
I read about it after the fact. When she's pulling off her spacesuit and she's still floating,
But honestly, you watch the behind the
Ooh,
scenes on it. Yeah, that's
damn.
brutal.
The
Go
hole
ahead.
through the face there. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's talk about face physics. For
Yay, face physics.
That
I remember dropping that class in college.
I'm no faceologist, but I'm pretty sure that if the size of debris like that went through it,
Whatever would leave a hole like
your
that.
face would not so much be impacted as it would be vaporized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It would be more headless than whole. Yes.
I mean, that happens with stuff that's way smaller than the apparent hole there.
Right.
I mean, every now and then when someone's shooting themselves in the head, their head explodes. Just because when you overpressure it like that, even with something as small as a bullet, sometimes it just goes. Fun fact.
So this movie is total bullshit because there is no Space Shuttle Explorer.
that's
Explorer is a good name.
Isn't Explorer the name of the sim?
I
Houston?
think that I want to say that that's the one that Houston got, like the fake space shuttle that's going to be on the real shuttle carrier aircraft, which I will be able to see from my house.
Ooh.
Where are
yeah.
they taking it?
What was that?
Where are they taking it?
Where are they taking what?
So
You said they're putting this fake space shuttle on the actual.
Oh yeah, so they're gonna put as a static display. The
Oh,
shuttle
right.
carrier
Gotcha,
aircraft
gotcha.
is now in Houston and been disassembled and was moved down the street the other day, and they're gonna put the fake shuttle on top of it, and it's gonna turn the actual 747 into a museum you can walk through. It's a very cool idea.
yeah. So he said shuttle carrier. He means the 747 that was modified.
KC-135?
No, it's a 747. It's a yeah.
That would fly whenever the shuttle would land in California, as it sometimes did. They would have to put it on top of that 747 and fly it across. It's
And
also what flew Endeavor
Here,
to Los Angeles when
And
they brought it here.
some wonderful engineer at some point in the process put the words actually stenciled on the attach points for the shuttle. Place shuttle here, black side down.
That's hilarious.
You can see that on the internet. I've seen photos of it.
Oh man. So Anthony, given the opportunity to not have to go through the training, but just be like
Especially not go through the
competently able to be up in space, would you be down for going up in space and doing some missions?
I go back and forth on that because my desire to shower is present, but certainly for an opportunity to go up and down, I don't have a big problem with claustrophobia, but I think I would in a Soyuz.
Yeah.
It is a teeny tiny little box, but to actually go up there and to see some of the stuff that that I work with every day, but I don't really get to look at, I think it'd be great. I would love to do that, and whether or not that would be a good idea for
For the international community
for,
or
for a
NASA or...
for a moderately colorblind guy with bad vision, it was debatable.
While we're on that, what is your role at NASA at this point?
So I operate the electrical and thermal system. So again, this is so if you
Wait,
imagine
you're here. Who's operating them now?
we've got like
Jerry's
we've
on
got
it.
a
Did you run out and say take the con?
yeah, we've got one of those little birds that dips down and hits a
Oh,
button
right,
every
I
once
see.
in a while. So what I do is basically, I work in mission control. I work in the room, and just like Apollo 13 type of stuff. We don't smoke anymore, and they got rid of the stair steps in there because it turns out that that's a trip hazard. But I sit front row center, and so I'm in charge of the big solar arrays. And when I sit console, it's a shift work type of thing, but we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And so there's always somebody there. There's somebody there right now. And what we do is we respond to nominal activities, things that we plan on doing. Hey, we've got a Russian vehicle coming up and docking, so we need to feather the solar arrays in a certain position so that thrusters don't blow them off. And then also, the big thing that the stuff that folks associate us with is problem solving, real-time problem solving. If something breaks, what do you do? And we have a team of engineers backing us up who really know the hardware, but we're designed for real-time decision making and risk management and making sure that the crew and systems in that order are safe. And so it's one of those, people describe, hours of boredom, minutes of sheer terror. It's certainly not boredom, because there's always something interesting going on, especially as the vehicle is aging and going into geriatric station syndrome because it's been up there for 15 years.
Is it 15 years old already?
It was the first
Well,
part.
the Zarya
First
is-
part was launched 1998, November 1998. And so, and then the times when things go bad, those are, it's, as one of the astronauts calls it, type 2 fun. It's fun you don't know you're having until afterwards.
Right.
And it comes down to the ability. The thing NASA does best is not spaceflight. The thing NASA does best that enables it to do spaceflight is problem solving. You get a room of NASA folks together, and you will have an answer. It goes back to Apollo 13, and I've seen it where we had a bolt that was stuck, and people were like, "Well, we could use a toothbrush," and somebody got all the toothbrushes they have on board and dumped them out on a table.
I was gonna say.
Which was funny because they were all the same toothbrush. I think they were. I'm like, you're just doing that for effect, aren't you?
I was going to say, this is a speculative question, and I want you to know, everyone, this is a hypothetical thing. This has not happened. He would never do that. But if Ed Harris came in wearing a Krantz vest and just said it in the right tone of voice,
Would we
guys,
take orders from him?
Yes. Ed Harris.
It's
With full-on Ed Harris face.
real answer, no.
But everyone's heart would
real-ish answer.
Everyone's heart would skip a beat and be like,
And then what you would do is look at the real flight director.
you're like,
and go,
flight,
and
we-
the real
can we-
flight director's going to go,
Yeah,
can we go with our real dad?
Yeah.
yeah. We did
Do we have a second to go with this just for fun?
We did have Uhura come in, and Nichelle Nichols came in one day when I was
That's cool.
on console, and somebody called me on the phone while she was there and walking around, and I regret to this day ever taking that phone call.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Well, that was the day actually that Trey, who you're sitting in on, was also there and getting a tour of the space station. Because remember, I texted you, I was saying, yeah, my friend is actually getting a tour of Johnson right now, and so if you wander over to Historical Mission Control, you'll probably meet him. That's actually
really?
Trey, yeah, who you almost met, 45 minutes ago.
Oh, that's cool.
But then I remember because you texted me back. Yeah, well, I met Nichelle Nichols. It was probably the same convention.
Almost as cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost as cool.
So there you go. Small world, as we see in front of us.
One of the things
World
that
scene here.
this sounds really dumb in terms of praising parts of the VFX of this movie, because there are way more flashy visual effects in this movie than this, but I'm impressed by it.
The lens flare. You're gonna say the lens flare, aren't you?
No.
Okay, good.
I was going to say,
They did those are real, by the way. They
photographed?
did it. Yeah, they did a whole photograph thing.
which is, there is 1,000 ways to screw up lighting these guys. And the bigger problem is not the sun. The sun, we know how to do that. That's pretty easy to ray trace. It's the sun. When you have an Earth this close to you, where it's taking up, we'll say 140 degrees of one side of you, that is a gigantic light source coming from all directions, which gives you this crazy soft,
Fill
ambient lighting all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of thing where pulling that off and making it look real and not look like an ambient occlusion pass is tricky.
They had to, and they were very particular about, like I said, they actually traced the flight path that these guys are taking, and figured out where they were going to be for each scene and how to make sense of them getting there. It's a great shot there.
As your baby.
Yeah.
Hi.
So that for that previous scene, they wanted them to be kind of mostly in the dark and mostly just lit by their helmets and stuff. So they're going, okay, how do we get them into a dark zone? How do we get them over this part?
How do we choreograph this properly?
Yeah, how do we choreograph this so
Damn.
that so that they're not over just ocean right here, you know? So
Oh.
there's a lot going on.
It's like
And,
Anthony's over here watching Old Yeller.
It's yeah. Why did they?
Now,
Aw,
aside
this is
from
why
the
we can't
fact
have nice things.
you said that the solar panels will reconfigure sometimes, and you can put them in different orientations so they don't
Right.
get blasted off. Is what iteration of the space station are we looking at? Is this current now?
That's
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
completed.
very accurate. It's a fairly accurate current look at it. A few things. That's an MBSU.
What kind of stuff is inaccurate? Bear in mind, I'm not gonna assume that we're taking this as a slight against the movie.
No.
Just,
I
but
think
what kind of
it's-
stuff
yeah,
are you noticing?
So on the external side, I think one of the modules is in the wrong place. It's super minor stuff, stuff that doesn't particularly bother me. That's
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Oof.
We cleaned up that parachute months ago on the real vehicle, but
They've been meaning to get around to it.
Eh.
You know, you're busy during the weekend, and
What is the
This
long,
bit with her falling is fantastic.
what is the sort of long time frame plan for the ISS?
so we're good through 2020. We're funded through 2020, and that's including all the
Yep,
international.
there's the
yeah,
spinning.
here we go. We're gonna.
That's why they're moving.
Yeah,
It may not be enough, but they are moving.
but we are doing we're doing as much science as we can to show that this is a national lab. It's a worthwhile endeavor, and certainly as we've come out of the assembly phase and into the use phase, we are the crew members are doing a great amount of science every week. The amount of man hours being put into science per week, especially when you think about they're usually just
and now she is not spinning.
If you can see him, watch the stars behind Clooney. If we can see him here, because there's kind of a glare on the TV. But they're going in one direction because he's
yeah,
going
I was expecting to see them going in several,
huh.
where it's like some of them are going left, some are
See,
going right.
but there's a little bit of rotation there. You can see it
Yeah.
behind him. And I just
It may
don't
not.
think
It may
I just
not
don't
be.
think it's enough.
It may
Yeah.
not be enough. It absolutely may not be enough. But it's not to say that they didn't think of that, and they probably just decided, oh, it's distracting if he
Yeah.
spins too much.
Maybe it's just
You
it's
know.
the wind. just
Doesn't look like he's
strong
spinning
wind.
that much.
Yep, he's going up and up and up, even in that shot.
All right.
Yeah,
It-
so I
again,
think it's there.
May
I
not
think,
be enough,
yeah.
but they that's what they are going for. They weren't just like, yeah, he's just dangling there. No, they're spinning.
Anthony.
Anthony, the astrophysicist.
I'm sure it doesn't work.
Final verdict.
I have no astrophysics background, but I can tell you that they're this scene is the one where a lot of us are like, that's not really no.
My problem
the
with
problem is it's so cliche.
my problem with the
Yeah.
scene is
Yeah.
that it's cliche.
Yeah.
I mean, if you unhooked, what it should happen is you unhook and,
And you
you're
should
just
see
there,
right there. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you could go, oh, maybe I should tink right back on.
yeah.
It's better if I just
yeah,
And
I
it
don't.
just-
I
it would
there's
just take her.
entire-
It would take one very gentle tug on her part to send him, floating gently.
no.
Yes,
Well, they
back
showed
forward.
that.
Well,
If
bear in
she
mind-
tugs on him, then her foot will.
My
Yeah,
thing with
but-
this is
but-
it's a permutation of it's a cliche, which is that this particular movie actually had the opportunity to do a really, really gripping and horrifying take on the cliche, which they opted to not do and just went with the vertical limit Robin Tunney gag. But what they could have done is she grabbed him by the hand and got him, and he just slipped out of her fingers, and he is 4 inches away, too
Yeah.
far, slowly moving, but he's like right fucking
Which
there.
is
But you
that-
can't
you
get
know-
to him. You can't get to him, but he's just right there. And it's one of those things where they just have this crestfallen look on their face, like, this right now is the worst possible thing. Just I'm right here.
That
and
would
a
be a good way
million
to do it.
miles
Which
away.
The other-
you won't hear me praise Mission to Mars very often, but that's what they do in Mission to Mars, and I think that's the right way to do it. He's just like 6 inches too far away,
And it's like
and she's gonna come after him, even though it means her own death, and he stops it.
I read a because I was interested in reading it, and I read a draft which turned out to be an earlier draft of the script that had some things different, including that scene. I was curious how they wrote that scene, and they originally had it simply that she missed. She tried to grab him and she missed, and he just
Yeah.
went spinning off, and that sucks. And they decided I haven't heard them talk about this, but clearly they decided that it was necessary and important for him to make that choice, for that to have been something they could have done, and for him to make that choice rather than it just be an accident, and to help kind of move that part of the story forward.
Yeah, I actually disagree with that, but not my movie, so nothing I can do about it.
I've gone back and forth. Right now, I feel like I disagree with that too, but then I remember in a little while I may think about that and remember why I was like, oh no, I see why they made that choice.
Sure.
But I do like the version that Teague was talking about better. To be
Yeah,
like,
I do
oh
too.
well,
There's nothing you can do.
yeah.
That's how it goes.
Although she would probably have just tried and died. So I think that might have been part of it, just taking that out of her hands.
So, yeah, so I mean, and this is the main, science crib on this movie is the fact that all three of these things are within
Yeah.
hop, skip, and a jump distance of each
Space
other.
is big. That's why they call it that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of room up there. But
Incidentally, that's why I think it was important to see this movie in 3D, because that's
because the space is big
yeah,
aspect of it.
because
Yeah.
that's a major function of the plot. As I said when I kind of wrote a review about it, it's like, space, the depth and the vastness of space is like the antagonist of this movie. So you have to see the movie where you can see the depth and the vastness in order to really appreciate it. Otherwise, you're watching Star Wars with Darth Vader's lines turned off.
Wait, I don't get it. Darth Vader's lines turned off? What do you mean?
It's like you're missing half of the
Oh,
experience of the antagonist. It's like it's still there, and you
I
can
got
still appreciate that it's scary,
You
but
can
you're not
still-
going to
you're
get
right.
the full effect.
right. I understand. I got you.
The attention to detail, like on the truss segment behind her, is just remarkable. Like that's pretty much how it looks. I mean, that little doodad sticking off there with the two little look like microphone booms, that's legit. That radiator, that's pretty much what that looks like. The one at the top of the screen there.
Right now, well, that's solar panel. That's
the solar panel on the
Vesda.
bottom screen. That's
Yeah.
part of that again. That's
But-
legit.
Yeah.
Somebody loved this movie.
Yeah. So
Somebody loved this station.
Trey and I actually had the opportunity. I don't know if I told you this, Anthony, but Trey and I went to a screening of this at the Writers Guild that had Quaron, the DP, one of the sound guys, and also the production designer.
Mhm.
And you had told me at this point already about how
Yeah.
spot on it was, and I had an inkling myself. So I was able to go up to the production designer after the fact and go, yeah. So my friend is actually he works on the space station as a mission controller, and he says you guys did a great job. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah, I'm super impressed.
what is that thing? I want to know what that thing is.
The thing that she just
It's
tried.
like
to-
it's like an
EVA stuff. I don't
experiment thing.
Some NASA
Yeah, it's
bullshit
probably a
technobabble.
thing you put out to see what the effect of space is on that thing.
Huh.
We do a lot of that.
Did you ever do that with a cat?
No, that probably would end quickly.
That'd be so cheap, though. You just need like some string and a cat.
No, that's more of a Russian style
cat
experiment.
status fail.
Abort.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Abort that cat.
Like,
Pretty Earth. I just can't believe the amount of "Here Comes Your Shot."
Yeah, this
yeah.
I mean, this shot is the shot of the movie,
Yeah,
and it's it knows it is that because you see it pop up all the time.
and fake space station.
Yeah, all digital. The entire environment.
Yeah.
I just
none of
can't
this
believe
is
how much
real.
memory. Memory is not a term that gets used often by people talking about visual effects after they're done, just because it's not a thing that it really occurs to you to think about. It's more in terms of like, oh, I see how they modeled that
Yeah.
conduit, and then they textured it, and they put the lights in there, and they matched the color, and cool, they built that, then they built that. But when you think about memory, the computer that are rendering, and bear in mind this is probably rendered in at least 10 or 15 passes, different parts of it, and then different, lighting
yeah.
hits and all that stuff, and RGB mats and holdouts and all that stuff, but whatever.
Way more than
You get
that.
to the point where everything that the computer is doing at any given moment, it has to be doing at that moment, which means if there's a giant goddamn Earth, and we're rendering the Earth for this part, and you wouldn't render the Earth and the spaceships on the same pass, but that's a really huge texture. And it's got normal maps and probably actually modeled clouds in it and everything. And it's just, you get to the point where there
Well, in
is
this
so
shot,
much
probably not,
goddamn
but yeah.
data that the computer has to load and configure and then work on rendering for every frame. That's one of the things that makes renders take longer or not as long is how much does it take? How many different goddamn bits does the computer have to load before it can spit out what you're asking it to spit out?
Well, that's also what the work that's also the work that goes into renderers, because I mean you look at a movie like Gravity, and if you wanted to, you go, well, we're done, we got there. we can just stop, and we're ready to do this for the rest of time. But the point of continuing to work on it is to optimize that, to make the renderer cleverer, to say, I don't see the Earth right now, so fuck it,
Right.
and continue with that kind of thing. So
Did everyone else groan?
I didn't groan.
We're looking at the in utero fetus shot.
It's a
here.
little bit arch, this womb shot, but I feel like the movie's kind of earned it.
Yeah,
so.
the movie is completely.
At this point, so I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the kind of thing that you do in an indie movie, I guess. But fucking what an indie movie!
What was the
And
budget on this?
it helps you like 100 million.
40. Oh, I thought it was.
It's high.
Is it?
A movie like this? It wasn't supposed to be, but
It also wasn't supposed to take 4 years.
yeah.
So the other impressive thing is, while they may not get all the modules and piece parts right, like the feel of the inside of the station is fairly accurate.
Really?
Yeah.
That
like
looks so messy and like
yeah.
open to air. And
yeah.
this looks more like the
It actually
Russian space
well,
station.
it is crew dependent
would've
on
thought.
how clean they keep it. But you got to consider you're not dealing with square footage, you're dealing with cubic footage, so you get a little more leeway and they're good about keeping their cables from just kind of spinning out there. That's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
But where things are, and generally like the look that the Russian segment had. Maybe they made my one argument is they made the Russian segment look a little too American side, because it's the Russian segment has kind of a more of a homey feel to it. It's a little more it's both homey and it's the equivalent of space wood paneling. It just looks like a 1970s bungalow almost.
But
But let me call
I
attention.
enjoyed that whole paragraph.
The laptop right there's like some bars and some colors. That's our scheduling software. I don't know where they got it. But that's how we schedule and timeline the crew's day and tell them when they're going to be like within comm with the vehicle or the ground and everything.
Is that close or is that like exactly it?
Somebody
Like print
they,
screened
they
it or
had
something?
someone on the inside. Yeah, that is
Cool.
If it's not exactly it, then
I-
it's awfully
I
close.
think they had a lot. They had a lot of communication with NASA, and the thing about it was just that they were talking about there were kind of interesting rules. It's like we Explorer is a fictional shuttle, so it was kind of designed to be different than the other ones, and there were interesting things like you can say NASA, you can have it be NASA, and you can have a patch that says NASA and kind of looks like a NASA patch, but you can't have an actual NASA patch. Like that's the limit that they don't allow in movies.
And I'm not familiar with what the rules are for that sort of thing.
That's interesting. Well,
You're not allowed to call it space. That's trademarked. So,
Yeah,
Space
George Lucas
TM.
owns that
Yeah.
and widescreen and also the color blue.
and everything.
Well, he sold it to Disney, so
The production designer was talking about how they. I don't remember if he said and if they had any official communication, but he was talking about they just had to find a lot of like every reference piece they could. Like we talked about how Kubrick basically reconstructed the interior of a B-52 for Doctor Strangelove, and like the Air Force didn't give him.
and they were like,
blueprints.
seriously, who told you?
Yeah, and they were like, "Who told you what the inside of a B-52 looks like?" He was saying is that's basically what they had to do for the station. They had to just find all the reference material they could. Now there's a lot more reference
Right,
material,
I mean-
I would imagine.
a lot of folks are like, "Oh, is your job classified?" Like, well, it's the opposite of that. We deal
Yeah.
with the internet. We deal with international partners. Now there are certain restrictions on, there's arms regulations and export controls and
Good
things
old
like that.
ITAR.
And
Oh,
you're
yes.
still not like technically supposed to tell us about the Martians.
Right, because of the incident. But no, it's just it's there's more information out there, and it's certainly, I think, one of the things that helps is the amount of video and cool pictures that have been sent down from station from folks like Sonny Williams and Chris Hadfield and So the alarm was fairly accurate. That display is the command and control laptop of the space station. It doesn't blink fire, but that is the that is the interface through which I command the vehicle. Like I click on a module and it pulls up a graphic display, And
Your job is
Is it
sounding more and more like Artemis the more you tell me about it.
Is it a Unix system? Do you know this? So this incredibly horrifying, terrifying thing actually happened. Not on the International Space Station, but on Mir.
yeah.
Mir did actually catch fire, and this is,
Yeah,
this actually happened to real people in the late 90s.
You just have to move your damn-con teams around. And
my wife trains astronauts how to respond in the case of a fire, in case of a rapid depressurization or a toxic release or something like that. That's they go through this training of when where the fire extinguishers are located and that sort of thing. But
that's terrifying.
It is. We have a mock-up where we dump smoke into it. Like, we have a smoke machine. We're probably one of the non-club owners of a smoke machine. NASA has a smoke machine. But it's very important that they know exactly what to do, because at these points, we on the ground help out as much as we can, but in those scenarios, fire, rapid depress, the crew is primed for their own protection. They've got to be the ones who have a memorized response and get out of there.
So is there a certain point where if something like that were to happen, and it becomes a point where they just have to do their thing, are you guys on the ground just like, okay, well,
I'm assuming you're at
talk
that
to us
point
when you
going,
can.
they're going to need this. Let's work on that. They're going to need that.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to stay ahead of them. And in the case of a fire, we're trying to look to see, like me as a power guy, I'm trying to see, is there a short circuit somewhere that is,
causing
there
it,
a bunch
or-
of heat can be coming
yeah.
out, and then I'm going to start unpowering stuff. And we can, we may unpower whole modules. And the other thing we do is, you stop the fans. It sounds like, well, what would that do? You stop the airflow fans, and a fire in space will tend to burn itself out because it just sits there. It makes combustion products and pushes all the oxygen away, and it just smolders itself out, unless there's a constant source that is giving it, which is why we moved all the oily rags away from the Flint experiment.
Back out into the garage.
Right.
Of the space station.
This is an actual set, by the way. Pretty much the only actual set in the movie is the Soyuz and the Shenzhou.
But so the other thing is there's 2 Soyuz lifeboats, right?
It depends on how much crew's up there. But
Well, that was my question. There's 6 up there right now.
3. Yeah.
There's
so they come up on their Soyuz and they leave on their Soyuz.
Yeah. Okay. Because
they, like,
if there were
paint
6
frames on them
people
and
on that
stuff
station and they all evacuated, there wouldn't be a Soyuz left over.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't just have an extra.
Ah, fun. That's cool.
Yeah, you
Good
go.
insight.
You go with your and that's why one of the first things they do in the event of emergency is you go to the Russian segment. You go near your lifeboat, because in the worst case, that's you need to have access to that. You can never cut yourself off from your lifeboat.
You don't want to be on the other side. and
Exactly.
not be able
We
to-
don't even let them. It's not let them, but we really don't want them closing hatches between themselves and the lifeboat.
Right.
In the event of a fire or something like that, would their first move be grab your chute, or would their first move be get into the Soyuz?
The first move is go back to the Russian segment and assess what's going on. Is the fire in the Russian segment? Is the fire in the American segment? And then you go out from there. Is it something where you're going to try and, is it critical to fight the fire to get to the Russian segment, to get to your lifeboats?
Mhm.
Or is it something where you can kind of go to your muster point and then meet up, make sure, do a head count, and then go forward and determine, well, is this something we can fight, or we need to leave?
If it was I'm assuming the last resort that you wouldn't really want to do, but probably could, I guess. You'd know, I don't. Can you just depress the station and just be like, all right, everyone hold your breath real quick. We're going to put out the fire this way.
Yeah, there's nothing, you could.
Like they
if
did in
you
that
have
one episode of Star Trek.
Right. You could do that, but
Or Firefly.
with what we do with
yeah.
the fans and everything, I think between that and the fire extinguishers, if that doesn't do it, you should probably go.
Yeah, there's less catastrophic ways of trying to solve this problem, and why add catastrophes on top of catastrophes?
Your way works too, but
Yeah. So when the fire did break out on Mir in the 90s, they got very close to abandoning the station, and really probably should have, depending on your point of view.
yeah.
If it were a NASA operation, they probably would have abandoned station.
Yeah, it's apples to oranges, but
Yeah.
we don't mess around with that.
If you look at old pictures of Mir towards the end of its life, talking about how
God, that's
the
gorgeous.
Russians generally keep their station, you can see that first of all it just got very cluttered over the years.
Yeah.
And they also ended up laying a whole bunch of like pipes and conduits between the modules so that they wouldn't even be able to close.
We call those
doors.
drag throughs.
Yeah.
We don't have drag throughs.
Yeah.
Drag through bad.
Yeah. Yes.
I never realized how much this little guy looks like a little fly fishing bait.
Which one?
Soyuz.
Ha.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of like has that like fly-looking thing with the wings on it. Like
It's
you're
based on
you're gonna put a
1950s
hook
fly
on it.
fishing technology.
I knew it. You heard it here first.
Reverse engineered from the
God, that is
1950s.
gorgeous.
Yeah, and I mean that is.
This is another single shot from here to the end of the ISS. It's
And
a
again,
one
you get
shot.
I mean, the thing in real life is the size of a football field. It is big. I
Yeah.
mean, and those parts on there, it's not a symmetrical looking thing. It's got these like gangly parts sticking off of it. This is what it looks like. It is a very real thing.
And the various little capsules and all these things, the modules, were
Every-
added at different parts, at different times,
little
different things, or
Tinker
different
toys
labs.
bringing
and-
up from different rockets. Usually the shuttle, if it's an American part, and built up over time. Anything that looks like circular, like anything that looks like a tube, that's where the people live inside of those. And then you have the big truss segment, which you can't you have to access that with a spacewalk.
Hmm.
And then the solar arrays and all the power systems. I mean, it's a big thing.
Is
It's
it
a
entirely
big-
solar powered?
Oh yes. We our solar arrays put out about 80 kilowatts total, maybe. So
A day.
what was that?
What's the time period on that?
No, it's 80 kilowatts. That's constant.
Oh, okay, constant.
Kilowatt,
Oh, wow.
Kilowatt hours would be, I guess. What
How many
Okay.
vacuum cleaners could you run on that?
Every time somebody brings up we have to power down, we only have this many amps, and I just whatever
You can't
amount
run a
they tell
vacuum
me
cleaner on
is, I
12
say
amps,
you
John."
can't run a vacuum cleaner, and then it could be something like, well, we only have 100 amps. You can't run a vacuum cleaner on 100 amps.
Yes, you can. That's plenty of
you
power.
can run like several. And by the way, they do run a vacuum cleaner, and we do see that with I'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden the current draw on one of the power relays will just go bing, like way up. I'm like, what the heck? Oh, they're vacuuming.
I'd imagine that would actually. It hadn't occurred to me that'd be a thing you have to do all the time. But there's gonna be dust,
We schedule them 40
skin flakes, and
Okay,
stuff.
I just want to say this is one of the benefits of the way that Quaron is shooting this is just these long takes and these wide shots and stuff like that. The first time I saw it, there's that thing moving in the background because it was just hit by a little piece of debris. I didn't see it get hit by the debris the first time. I just saw it moving in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm going, why
Did
is that thing moving? It's in space. And then you'll see another one go,
Yeah.
and you start to see
It's-
more and more, and you go, oh my God.
shit.
When it starts, you're like, you think you see something,
Yeah.
but you're not sure. Did I see something?
My feeling is that Hitchcock would have loved this scene.
Yeah.
But he would have loved this movie, but he would have loved this scene, particularly this moment here with the wrench.
And particularly
She
since
sets it
all of these
down.
things are birds
Yeah.
going by.
and
And there's a lot of Oedipal issues going on.
the
as
way
well.
the way that the camera is following the wrench and going up, we know it's happening, but she doesn't, is something that Hitchcock would have been nuts for. That's the kind of thing he does. There's the movie he did,
Oh
Rope,
man.
reminds me a lot of this.
Oh,
a lot of what
man.
Oh,
A lot of what
this
he
is
was-
why we can't have nice things.
a lot of what he was doing in Rope is very similar to what's going on.
Now,
here.
I'm gonna make
This is my favorite scene in the
some
movie.
guttural sounds here as my things get hurt.
Yeah.
Do you have did you have a NASA screening of this where everyone just watched like threw popcorn at this part like no?
Should have. It would have had the exact same result that you're expecting. And that's the European Automated Transfer Vehicle, and that is its solar array.
Oh, it was and was.
That's
That's
by the way,
that's basically the European, resupply thing, right?
you have no idea the meetings that are resulting for each one of these hits. So many meetings.
It's like me and
Oh.
a hot fuzz. All the
Yeah.
paperwork.
Oh, that's my. Oh, that is.
The,
so that was the thermal
That's your
rotary
part?
rotary joint. That.
This bit right here, this is where it's like you're on a ride.
Oh.
And
dear.
it's so amazing and through. Yeah, this is the part of the movie where I go, I have never seen anything like this in a movie before.
I regret nothing.
ever. And
Tell
just
my wife
just
I
the
said
fact that
hello.
of going through this experience,
That is just
with her
amazing to
is
watch.
astonishing. And there's
We're
so
watching
much
the
going
ISS
on.
break up in case you didn't catch
Yeah,
it.
there's so much going on every time you watch it. You can watch something different. She's busy the whole time,
Yeah.
which
Trying to
is-
fix it.
well, it's great as a character thing. All of this other shit is going on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna. Oh.
Meanwhile, she's got a job to do and she's doing it. Which people complained about her. It's a main character who's a woman, and a lot of people were complaining just based on the trailer, really, that she didn't seem to be in control or know what she was doing. Because granted, in the trailer, there's a lot of, oh, what's going on? What am I do? What do I do?
I am not in control and don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It is a very panicky scene.
Well, that particular, not this one. It's actually when they get to the ISS where a lot of that came from. But I mean, what are you gonna? What can you say about a character who goes through that
Right.
and still manages to to accomplish the task that,
Well, it's-
that she has
it's
to
like this-
accomplish?
It's the movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but
Yeah,
so
but
so what? You know,
That's
but like that doesn't really. It doesn't.
Dude, she spends
Yeah.
like half the movie talking to herself.
that's true, and it's never
two
about a man.
female
Bechdel,
characters.
the reflexive.
Rule one. Yeah.
Ryan and Stone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have had like GLaDOS or
That-
something.
Talk about
the
a
baby is
Siri
girl.
voice.
We didn't talk about casting at all. How do you guys? I think Sandra, thumbs up. Clooney was a little Cloonish for me.
Clooney is just hitting it too hard. He's
Yeah,
just-
I mean,
it's a character.
A little too Buck Rogers.
I
Yeah.
have.
His
I don't have a
character
problem
certainly-
with Sandra Bullock in any particular way, but I also don't quite get the sort of Bullock sance, if McConaughey can have a McConaughey, where I don't. I would have loved Jodie Foster or something like that. I don't know exactly
She
what
would've been good,
distinction
yeah.
I'm drawing in on, but for some reason, I think she does fine. But she also, it's not a particularly memorable performance for me. Really.
No, you're crazy. Sandra Bullock is the best.
No, I liked her in Speed.
I have a super crush on Sandra Bullock.
There's a bomb on this space station, and if it goes any less than
If we go
40
under 50,000,
17,000.
anything under 17,000 miles, and it'll blow.
She just grabs the thruster and says, "I'm gonna speed it."
Keanu comes up on a little space jet ski with a sign, "Bomb on space station."
we're gonna burn prograde. So here's actually like I would call this like a legitimate missed opportunity in terms of something they could have done with this movie and they didn't. So orbital mechanics is not this simple in terms of just you point to where you want to go and you fire.
Well, honestly,
Even the cartoony
as
game
how,
based on
how
orbital
close they
mechanics
are,
isn't this simple.
you can get away with that. It's the difference between we have rendezvous, which is like very orbital mechanic centric of how you get close to the space station. Then you get into prox ops, where you're kind of fighting against orbital mechanics to just
get close enough.
Get close enough to do
Yeah.
it. And I didn't see exactly how far away they are.
Where's the handoff between orbital mechanics and prox ops?
Like,
Is it like a
there's no
kilometer
line.
or like
Yeah,
five meters? I mean, is it?
No, it'd be like a kilometer, right?
I don't know. There's no.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's-
Okay.
But at that point, you cease to be thinking in terms of the Earth and your place around it, and start thinking, okay, it's right there.
There, yeah.
Well,
go
in
to that.
In the
Go to that. Some guy
the-
standing on
go
the
through
front,
there.
like, let's do this.
in the Kerbal Space Program videos that I've watched, personally, the limit tends to be about 2 kilometers. So just if you want to take that back
Oh,
to
okay. Well,
to
I'll give
Houston.
that back to the guys in
Yeah.
R&D.
I'm baffled that that little scene right there is what they used for her Oscar nomination.
Oh yeah.
During the Oscar ceremony, yeah, they showed her flipping out about the gas gauge as opposed to like the next scene where
Yeah, her
she,
talking to
she
the-
gets super emotional.
Talking
yeah.
to the guy on the ground, yeah. But anyway, I feel like there was a little bit of a missed opportunity in the sense of she's clearly not trained for any of what she's doing now, and she has to get right there. But it's space, and orbital mechanics is weird. Like you could have done something with, it's not as simple as just pointing straight at it and going. You have to do a rendezvous thing.
That's a beautiful Aurora.
Oh, I've never seen
And
the Aurora, and I really want to.
And I've never seen him in person. I've seen him on video all the time. 'cause
Yeah.
we fly in them, but well, actually, we're over them. But yeah,
What's
I've
the
never
one
seen-
with the South Pole called?
the Aurora Australis?
Australis.
Australis. What are those
It's
words?
funny-
What are those words?
It's funny the like the little religious implements there. That's I don't know if they have them in the Soyuz, but they have like little kind of Russian Orthodox idolatry in the Soyuz, or I'm sorry, in the Russian segment.
I can.
Oh,
They
yeah?
actually have over the main door to the back of the station. There's a cross and a photo of Yuri Gagarin, and I
Huh.
think Solyovsky maybe. But-
Tempest Fugit. Don't worry about the vase.
And the Buddy Christ.
Yeah.
So who saw the short, the uncut short?
I saw it. I
I
wasn't that impressed by it.
I didn't know, but I didn't like it. I only saw I saw the first couple minutes of it because it's like and it's not even long. It's like 5 minutes, but I'm like, no, this is not. Nah. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was that impressive. I like it better. Not really. I like it better. The idea that I had watching this almost, which is that he's not even really talking to her. Like he's sort of a little.
Yeah.
He's messing around with his radio and he hears her voice and he's like responding to it and whatnot. But most of the conversation going on is just happens to be getting picked up
Right.
by his transceiver, and he's not talking to her at all. Because I think that plays better into what I was talking about before with the idea of the importance of the human connection. This is the this human connection is kind of what helps give her a reason to go on ultimately,
Right.
when she's about to give up. And the idea that it matters so much that it didn't even matter that he wasn't talking to her.
Yeah.
Just the fact that she heard another person's voice is what helped give her the will to go on.
It wasn't even that real of a connection.
Yeah.
And you see it from the other guy's point of view. I think it would have been stronger if through most of it, yeah, he's not connected to her at all.
Yeah.
And maybe he has like one moment of real connection to her at the very end.
Yeah,
And that's-
at the beginning he hears her say Mayday and he thinks that's her name or something.
Yeah.
He's kind of joking around with her, but other than that, the dogs are barking and the baby's crying, but that's just him dealing with that. And it's happens to get picked up on his his ham radio or whatever she's picking it up from. But instead it's like he's sitting down and having a conversation with her, and helping her get through this, and I actually think that's weaker.
Yeah. I agree.
It's weird what you just said, and this scene, it reminds me of. Remember the scene in The Right Stuff where they go down to Australia and the Aboriginal guy shakes the fire and the embers come up into space? Remember that scene? That was
Yeah.
weird.
I like that scene. I think I forgot about it, so you just mentioned it.
I know,
do
but it
like
happened. It
But
totally
did
happened.
happen. Yeah. Right Stuff is a great movie in the sense of it's very cinematic in the things that it's depicting, but it does not really have a connecting theme.
Not really.
About-
It's kind of a little anthology. It's like a little
Yeah.
mini From the Earth to the Moon.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a mini.
But it did contain
miniseries.
footage of the best pilot I ever did see, and that's good.
Got any Beemans? You might have a stick. I think Sandra Bullock is fantastic. I think this scene is amazing.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
Just to consider the actual, she's actually sitting in a chair right now, hanging upside down or sideways or whatever, with her
I think
arms
she's just
like
sitting.
hanging in front of her in this really awkward way.
I think she's just sitting.
think she's so good.
The amazing. Again, this is a real set, but even in this, there's amazing effects work going on because all of the belts are animated. They're digital and animated
Right.
so that they'll float, which is just a crap ton of very subtle work that had to be done over the course of this, 8-minute shot or however long it is.
How would they have broken this out for 3D? I'm assuming, obviously, with the cards, the heads, those are going to have to be hand done. But everything
Right,
else, you're
this-
probably going to get it from VFX. In mats, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Anything that was done in the that was CG, it literally computer generated and originated in the computer, was produced natively. That was produced in stereoscopic. Both sides were rendered, which you were talking about how complex it was in the first place, and then they're doing it in 3D.
Yeah, but at that point, you get that. It's
You get
unfair
s-
to say you get it for free, but you kind
You
of
get
it for
some
free.
of it for free. It's not
You don't have
double-
to roto all the different individual parts
you
of the
don't
cloud.
you don't double the same amount of you don't double the amount of work, especially when you're in the renderer and stuff like that. It's more like it's 40% more work as opposed to 100% more work.
Yeah.
But because a lot of the calculations have already been done, you're just slightly shifting them. But it's good to point out that because of the cramped spaces and the way they were doing it and stuff like that, it was not shot stereoscopically, any of the live stuff. All of their faces in the helmets were converted, and these scenes here inside the capsules were also converted for 3D, which I think they did a very good job. There were some issues I saw with it actually in the
hair.
there's always going to be trouble with hair in the womb scene, like that actual iconic shot. There was some tearing like along where the
I remember
arms and
noticing
legs
that,
cross, and I was shocked by that because that is the kind of thing that you always call out and you really try to minimize and work on, and you'll do paint if you need to, and it's like that's the shot of the movie,
Right.
and I'm amazed that they allowed that to get through. I suppose most people wouldn't notice, but
And yet you endorsed
did.
it with your 3D purchase.
I didn't know.
The original
No, the
screenplay for
Blu-ray, I
this,
mean.
that was going to
Oh.
be, this scene right now was going to actually be Gene Hackman from Maroon. We've
How do you
been
guys
out here
feel
for
about-
40 years.
How do you guys feel about the idea of doing a dream sequence in this movie kind of at all?
Oh, she's
I'm okay with it.
losing her she's oxygen deprived and hallucinating, so and this is a dream sequence. The hint is that neither of them have visible breath, which she does when she's alone.
Oh.
I didn't pick up on that part before.
Yeah,
Okay.
she has visible
Cool.
breath when she's talking to Enagok. They don't in this scene, and then when it goes back and he disappears, you'll see her breath reappear. So that's the clue that that this isn't happening.
Oh, screw that mirror.
Which mirror?
The mirror on his wrist. His little.
Oh,
It's just like, as a VFX artist, I'm like, oh, get the hell out of here.
yeah, really, that one too. Damn it.
At least in this case, it's a set for the most part, so you're getting most of your reflections for free. But if that going on outside, I guess in that case also because it's a CG
digital.
suit, then you can do the reflection for realsies there. But like, oh god, really?
Yeah. As we may not have been clear before, I was talking about only their faces are real. All of the suits, everything outside is digital and reconstructed, in animation and stuff like that. All of their motions, and they talked about discovering very interesting things about the subtleties of how things are different. And I may get this backwards, but between the Russian suits and the American suits, one of them is designed so that the neutral state is fingers out, and you have to tighten them. You have to compress your fist,
Right.
and one is designed with fingers compressed, and you have to straighten them.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's right. I forget which one is which.
Yeah, I don't know which is which. Actually, if you look at her suit, it would appear that the Russian suit is the one with the compressed.
I'm trying to
fingers
figure out which one would
that
be
you have to
ideal.
extend.
Obviously, a middle ground would be ideal, but I have to imagine the one that's built to be fists would help you more because it gives you free grip. You open your hand to grab something, and then you're getting
Right.
at least some free pushback
Right.
from the suit itself just to hold it. But
Yeah,
then
and
again,
if
maybe
you just
not.
like relax your hand entirely, like you ever realize that it's like a hand? But it's if you relax
Here
it,
come the
it kind of like
jesters. 1, 2,
turns
3.
into half a grip.
Yeah, it's not naturally either. It's
Yeah,
it's in the
somewhere
middle.
in between.
Yeah, it's fun. We, for as close as I am to it, all the spacewalk stuff. We're usually my system's on the supply side of spacewalks rather than like the actual execution side. Like our stuff needs to be spacewalked.
Oh.
Because our stuff breaks and we work very much closely with the EVA guys then, but the knowledge about the systems and the suits and everything like that, that's that's a whole world. I mean, it's a space, each one of
But
those
isn't it-
guys is wearing their own spacecraft. I mean, a spacesuit is a spacecraft. It's a very, very remarkable piece of technology.
Isn't that what Jen was working on for a while?
No, she is so she does life support training and things like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought she was involved in spacesuits at some point.
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
I have to ask, did
Janet-
you
Janet's
meet
my
her
wife.
at like Embry-Riddle or at NASA, or is it just like two random high school sweethearts that both ended up working?
No,
At
no,
NASA.
it was we met at NASA. She's a local down there, from Houston, and she and her best friend worked on a flight with me, back in 2009. We sat next to each other in one of the multipurpose support rooms, and she got us together.
Nifty.
Yes, well, we spent as many
And
time.
her dad is an astronaut, right?
Her dad, it was an astronaut.
Was an
That's
astronaut.
correct. Back in the 80s. Which is
Shuttle missions?
yes, he flew 4 shuttle missions, 3 in the 80s, 2 in the 90s on Challenger and Discovery. Yeah, Challenger and Discovery.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of the family
Was your
business.
dad an astronaut?
Right, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I hear fun stories about her from growing up in basically science fairs in the Clear Lake area of Houston are
massively unfair.
Are a cutthroat business. It's like, oh, here's a terrarium. Oh, and here's my nuclear railgun.
I put different things into Coke to see how fast they would dissolve. I took different things into space
Yeah,
to see how
exactly.
fast they
Here's
would
some stuff that's been in space. No science, just is.
Drop the
Take
mic.
it and like it.
Boom.
I won 3 science fairs in a row in elementary school, year, and I would not have had a chance, even in like the surrounding counties.
Well, it's funny, when you grow up there, everything is normal. Her stories about, how that how it was to grow up with that all around you all the time. There's a funny story about when she was her brother. It was career day at school, and her brother asked her dad, "Hey, can you come in? But can you come in as a Marine? Because you're also a Marine. Because everybody else's dad's coming in as an astronaut." That's just kind of
What the hell?
It's
Like
like
that-
it's
like
like
that-
being
It's such
like,
a weird
you're
perspective.
you're a milkman. What's that like?
Yeah, it's like the one kid whose dad is an accountant. He's like, that's
Yeah.
his one day to shine.
Yeah,
But then he's an accountant to the astronaut, so it's still like not that awesome.
accountant of the space.
I mean, that's like, on the other end of the spectrum, it's like that here. It's like, we all know somebody who's at least slightly famous, like,
Mhm.
oh, you're friends with who so and so. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again,
I
if you're around it, it becomes normal.
What'd be funny
Yeah.
is if, like, at diners and various eating establishments around the Houston greater area, if they have like headshots of astronauts from when they come in that one day, it's like, oh, will you sign this and we'll put it on the wall with all the other astronaut photos. It's like here you have a diner. It's like, hey, Leonardo DiCaprio and Gerard Butler on the wall. He must have come in at some point.
Yeah.
There it's just like pictures of like Al Bean.
That is it. That is what literally that is
That
how
happens?
they do it. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Most restaurants down there have that. There's a wall at the. It's a really good Japanese.
The Wall
place.
of the Stars.
Right, there's a really good Japanese place near my house, and it's just the whole wall. Especially the Japanese astronauts love coming there because it's actually really good Japanese food. And if you hear that from the Japanese, that's a good sign.
Have you met any of the Apollo astronauts?
Yes. Yes.
Was that a dumb question?
No, it wasn't a dumb
No.
question. I've met one, and it was John Young, who was at my wedding.
And I still say I met him, even though you didn't actually introduce us.
That's
but I still
correct.
count it.
Well, you were
Brian
here.
just got drunk and sauntered over,
Hey!
flashed him,
No.
just like
Well, again, and whenever I encounter him, he's a
Check
great,
out
great
this
guy.
moon.
He and his wife are very good friends with my wife's family, and they've always been very good to us. And it's just but part of me, whenever I see him and whenever I'm near him, I just having a regular conversation with him, but in my brain is just constantly going, and how was the moon?
Yeah.
What was the moon like? Moon.
Tell me about the moon.
Yeah.
you're just like hearing like a high pitched like tinnitus buzz. Your whole,
Moon, 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 moon.
So there are, just for the record, there are 3 currently individuals in all of human history who have been to the moon and back twice, and one of them was at Anthony's
One of them
wedding,
was at my wedding,
and the other one,
and Brian was at my wedding.
I was there too.
so
and
by
I-
the,
and
by
the-
the
yeah.
transitive property, Brian has been to the moon once.
right?
And the second,
Well, then
of-
by the transitive property, I have flooded John Young's apartment.
Yes, that's a great story. It's just a college story. It
I
has
didn't.
nothing to
I
do with
didn't
space.
I didn't actively flood it. I just didn't do anything to stop it.
I just stood
All that
idly
is
by.
needed for evil to win is for good men to do nothing.
Right. That's what we went with that day.
Yes.
Oh, this is so tricky.
Yeah, so this scene again is
This
a
is where
great,
she jumps onto. This is the Fast and the Furious bit
Well,
where
the
she jumps
fact-
onto the truck.
the fact that the rest of the movie has been her tumbling out of control through space, and this is her taking control. And yeah,
It would be so impossibly
leaping.
difficult to
Oh,
navigate
you
like
could-
this.
Yeah.
never.
You
would die.
yeah.
But the fact that she was willing to do this is the important. Again, it's like
A
you never
proactive
would.
step.
You never would, but story wise, story logic, this is.
I like
this
to
is
imagine,
imperative.
when she gets back to Earth and back to NASA, and she has the debrief, and she tells them about this part. I would like to imagine like the other NASA engineers going, no,
Yeah.
no.
At which point they'd start like
Yeah.
trying to fill in the more plausible ways
Now
she
you're-
could have gotten on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Where it's like clearly you
Now I feel like you were
Yeah.
lying about
this
everything.
is all
you got your Batman.
She's doing a contact thing. It never happened. Oh,
It's like okay.
what do you mean? She's got 18 hours of tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Does the Chinese station actually look like this at this point? Is it this big?
No, it's not that big.
Yeah.
It's basically the size of the service module of the Russian segment of the space station of the U.S. I'm sorry, the International Space Station. From what I know, I also have. It's I wouldn't say shocking. It is interesting to me how little those of us who work in space know about the Chinese space station. It's not like they're actively trying to hide it. I don't think it's a.
It's not
I don't.
suspicious.
I don't think it's a
It's
golden.
just like-
It's not a golden eye, but it is something where it's just we are loosely aware that it's there, but we just have no involvement in it. We wish them the best.
Is the ISS and their space station, are they on like saying the same orbit is kind of hard to
I do believe that they are at
Generally the
same
same
or
angle?
similar inclination, right?
right on.
Of course, it all depends on what time of the day when you're at that inclination that
Are they
you
at the same
launch the
altitude?
vehicle. I'm not sure about that. I know the station's around 300 to 400 kilometers. So that's like
Does it vary,
250 miles.
or are you just
Oh,
rounding?
well, so when the shuttle program ended, we boosted it up because we no longer had, the Soyuz doesn't have as much of a problem getting up that high. But the shuttle did because mass, altitude is fuel. So once the shuttle program was over, we had an ATV, a European Automated Transfer Vehicle, big tanks, and so we said, all right, let's go up about 50 kilometers, and so we fired
Huh.
off for a bit. It's interesting. It had quite a lot of effects on just the thermal environment and things like that. Orbital debris, our orbit time got a little bit longer. These things that you don't notice until you leave the neighborhood.
At this point, I have to imagine this is not the case, but I'm going to ask anyway. At this point, is the altitude set for life, or do you have to constantly?
Oh
make
no, we
adjustments
have
to
to.
it?
I mean, anything, especially at the altitudes we fly at. So Hubble is.
It's out of the atmo, though, isn't it?
So Hubble's at 600 kilometers, but
Yeah.
there's still, there's atomic oxygen up at 600 kilometers, which is well above where the station is. And so the Hubble will eventually decay and fall, and it's probably going to be, I think, 30 years or something, maybe something along that line. And that depends on the sun. If the sun gets mad and throws heat, throws a lot of stuff at us, the atmosphere expands and drag gets worse. Station where it's at and how big it is, of course, and how non-aerodynamic in the least it is.
It's designed to catch wind.
It really is. I mean, we move our solar rays at times just for the purpose of drag reduction. But as big as it is, we reboost probably once a month ish, and it's a little fire. We go a couple miles an hour or something like that. I'm not exactly sure.
How much altitude do you boost it by? Like a kilometer or like 500 meters?
You're getting out of my my wheelhouse.
I just wonder how much decay they're like.
Just
let it sink a little bit, or bounce it back up. If that's 20 feet, or like it just hit the Eiffel Tower. We got to push it up a little bit higher now.
It's a skosh.
It's a skosh. Yeah, can we just a hair higher if we could, just to kick it? Really, just kick it.
Yeah.
That would be all we need. This is such a tense goddamn scene.
Yeah.
There were 2 movies last year that both set high watermarks for me being tense in a movie theater. One of them was Captain Phillips, especially the end of Captain Phillips. And the other was this. And both of them are...
The fact that she, by the way, the fact that she manages to make a little joke in that scene.
What, speaking Spanish?
Yeah. She's like, oh, no hablo chino, and turns it off. That's the kind of thing that a lot of people complain about movies being too serious these days, and they're right. Folks will say, well, it's a
serious movie.
It's a serious movie. Serious things are happening. It's like, yeah, but people do that.
Yes.
People do that. You can still have some levity. You can still have the characters.
And
do
nobody
stuff
is
like
mistaking this movie for a comedy because of that one moment.
Although at some points this movie does go full Clooney.
A few times.
He's a little too late.
By the way,
too light.
It's true. But
Yeah.
Speaking of the conversion, because they were actually shaking her and the set and the camera, real hard to deal with. Didn't really work. Didn't really work.
Because at that point, all your little
converting
rotor shapes have to be tracked.
Yeah, and
because they're all jiggling.
and everything's blurred together, and it's not really working. And
also,
so-
I'm sorry, I just noticed nothing should be floating right now. It should all just kind of be pressed up against the
Slammed.
wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I were her, I would probably want to move that
What?
set because that's gonna smash you in the face.
Do you remember the? Did you guys remember one of the behind the scenes featurettes from Apollo 13? How they got the out of the window sort of blasting furnace of fire going on? How that effect was actually done? I think Rob
I don't
Legato was the soup on
He
Apollo
was.
13.
And
What it was it was time lapse footage of fire. And just when you overexpose and give each frame a second to expose, the result when you play it back is just this perfect.
Huh.
Yeah.
This movie is set up in such a way, and especially with that last monologue, that you watch this and go, she could really die right now.
Yeah, it's not like there's gonna be a
yeah.
sequel.
The movie,
She's never going back to space.
it's just that story
How'd
wise, you
feel
watch
that? I
it
think it was
and
an
you go,
earthquake just now. Did you feel it? I felt
I
something.
thought it was a truck.
It might have been a
I
truck.
thought it
The
was
floor
a-
in this room bounces a lot because right now we're actually over negative space. There's a garage underneath us.
Oh, okay.
I watched this and thought, I hope they don't, and they don't, obviously. But story wise,
Her arc is completed.
story wise, it is valid to kill her now, or it's valid to not show whether or not it would be valid to fade out and roll the credits right now.
Well, let's split the difference. Let's get her back to Earth, get her out of the water, get her onto shore, and then have her trip.
Just snap her
And
down.
then she steps on a rusty nail.
Yeah. And then she gets bit by a mosquito, and
West Nile.
yeah, that's
So this is
gravity too.
So the main capsule of a Soyuz, which is I guess the same thing as basically the Chinese thing. It's designed. People complain about Russian design. Oh, it's from the 40s. Well, it's a really cool design. Its natural state in a situation like this is to maneuver itself to be heat shield side down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Which they
a
show,
real
which they-
smart design.
They just make it.
but
It's like a
the-
lead weight. They just weighted it heavier on one end. So
Yeah, basically
The
it's,
center of mass is low enough that it
center of mass and then the aerodynamic center of pressure are offset in a way that it kind of corrects itself.
it's like one of those bozo clowns.
But the Apollo, the command module was the same way, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, Phil Plate's been looking at this shot a lot lately. He's trying to find out if it's actually a meteorite or if it's just like a rock falling off
Oh
of the.
wow, a bad astronomy reference. You guys are the best.
Aw, finally, a joke for my generation. Yeah, that smoke, dude.
This is Houston.
fire
We
is
have
not great.
lots of
It is not.
questions.
The fire is actually the fire is actually pretty bad compared to how amazing the fire was in the ISS, which, by the way, was a tremendous effects challenge because there's not a lot of reference for what that looks like.
I've only ever seen like 2 pieces of footage of fire, and it's always like a match.
Yeah, it's a
sized
tiny
piece
little
of fire.
thing, and that's
Yeah.
all they could. That's all they saw either, and they're like, okay, I
Yeah,
guess we're just gonna have to make that up.
we have a luckily small amount of data points. But yeah, we have a furnace rack on station where we just like set little balls of fluid on fire, and it's really interesting to see.
Huh. And presumably all of them end up being little spheres.
And they just kind of maneuver themselves around. Some of them get little jets out the side, which I don't really understand.
Air pockets, maybe?
Science.
Or just uneven fuel burning.
The water also 80% there. That's a CBB.
Well, a
on
lot
the
of
water.
this, the water's actually.
Well, I mean, the water,
These,
the surface of the water.
these scenes are. They shot a lot of that with the model, so some of that is real. But yeah,
Also, just to point out, this also actually happened in real life. Gus Grissom.
Oh yes.
And you know,
And it was his fault.
they dramatize it in the right stuff,
Stuff,
but they
yeah.
talk about
It wasn't his fault. I was kidding.
yeah, they did finally confirm, many years after the fact, that it wasn't his fault.
It was his fault
the
because he brought dimes.
the hatch blew off. The hatch blew off on its own before he was ready, before it was supposed to. And all of that, what you just saw happen to Sandra Bullock, actually happened to Gus Grissom, and he almost drowned.
the fact that
And, and then his suit filled up with water. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which the thing you don't want to be in.
I love
which we proved this summer. Thing you don't want to be in water is a spacesuit.
the fact that the movie, the way it's constructed, it refuses to give her a break until literally the last second. It's
Yeah.
like there's this, and even as she's swimming to the surface, it's like, oh no, there's kelp.
No,
that
the-
might fucking
the parachute.
Yeah.
She's got to get out of the fucking
Yeah.
parachute.
Oh man.
But
So,
I'm allergic.
This movie,
to kelp.
like with the same font and everything, but it's just called "Fuck Sandra
Yeah,
Bullock."
it refuses. Yeah, even right there, it's like, oh, but she might right here, and no. So now we're in the final shot of the film.
Is there ever an
They just
indication
need to
of where this
Photoshop
is?
into a shark fin.
Yeah,
In the back.
Is there ever an indication of where this is in the behind the scenes materials or anything?
I
Did
think
they say where?
I think it's supposed
Presumably
to
you could
be-
figure it out based on where they were in orbit.
It's supposed to be, yeah,
Like
like
Indonesia
somewhere
or
in,
something?
in
my
Indonesia
assumption,
or Mongolia.
my
or
assumption,
something
it's the
like
place. It is the same place that they crash land at the beginning of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
It just has that feel to it.
that. They actually shot it.
Watch this be the island from Lost. God damn it!
They actually shot it in Utah, and then at a lake in Utah, and then they realized that they were
That
like,
Utah
well,
is a mythical
she's
place.
supposed to return, and it's all about rebirth and being and life and that whole thing and
Whoa, whoa, too
celebration
deep.
of a celebration of life, and they're in Utah and it's a desert and everything's brown and dead, and so all of this greenery, this is all
We
this
can't
is all
celebrate
digital.
life in
This
Utah.
is all tracked in, and
Oh, wow.
there's a huge amount of visual effects work going on in the background behind her that they did not intend to do. They thought this was going to be, we don't even have to touch this shot. Nope. They had to do
Why
it.
not just go
a
find
huge
a
amount
new
of stuff.
lake?
I
and shoot it
honestly,
again?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
But that's.
I mean, there's
that's what they
impressive,
did.
and then there's ridiculous.
yeah, but they so this
Work
last bit.
impossibly difficult, not smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hate
So
I hate the part that's upcoming here where she stands up and she says, "Gosh, it's hard to standing up. It's hard to stand up because of all of this gravity." And then they cut.
And
I-
looks into the camera.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was just a bad
Boy,
way.
I'm just tired of these Star Wars.
I liked Quaron talks about that this is kind of a this whole thing is a metaphor for the birth of life and particularly the
She's like a fawn.
rather inaccurate. Well, not only that, it's like she's just been born, and water is always a symbol of birth and rebirth and stuff like that. And there's that aspect to it, but there's also the aspect of kind of following the path of evolution. It's like she crawls out of the water, and then she finds her way into all fours, and then she manages to stand up like kind of hunched over, and then she
Yeah.
manages to get all the way
And
up.
the frog is a reference to that too. The frog that swims by.
Do they say in the movie how long she's been up there?
It's a couple weeks.
So she'd be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, we've gotten good enough at our what do you call biological countermeasures that, after folks land on, or after being in station for 6 months, like I once saw a crew walk into mission control after they had departed they were on station 40 hours earlier, and they walked into mission control and they were just saying, "Hey,
Huh.
what's up?" And they had in there
You'd
was
think, but you
3
can't,
flights from Kazakhstan, which that alone.
That alone, you lose a bunch of bones.
Exactly.
You would think even if you're doing like exercise with added weight and all that stuff, and you're doing resistance training, even stuff like your lungs and your heart you can't really exercise those.
Well, I mean,
maybe you can.
So we have treadmills, we have bikes, we have resistive exercise, like you kind of lifting weights, but except using rubber bands type of stuff. And I know the biological guys have really made a lot of progress just from the beginning of station when folks came back and they didn't seem so hot to now where there's still variation person to person, but folks come back. We are getting better at managing the human body through spaceflight.
And the cool thing that they're about to start doing is they're gonna have the twin brothers. They're gonna have one stay on Earth
That's
and
right.
one go up.
Yeah.
I love the
awesome.
idea of that experiment, but it is a little creepy on the pitch where it's just like, all right, we're going to take some twins and we're going to put one of them in space. That's just I understand everything about why that's a fine idea and it's not a problem. It just reminds me of Mengele too much. Where it's like, we're going to take one twin because we have a control group and we're not going to pour lye into his eyeballs. And then we're going to see what happens to this guy when we do.
I think it's just incredibly awesome that you had a set of identical twins that both became astronauts.
Yeah, that's true.
And one got to marry a congresswoman.
That's exactly it. Yeah, actually, my wife is training that 1-year crew.
Oh, that's crazy.
Kelly.
So which one is going up and which one's staying? It's the Kelly brothers.
Well, they're gonna
Scott is going up.
Scott is going up.
they're gonna switch and like wear each other's clothes and shit. No one will know.
You're right. Well, we always
what if
we
they
joked
switch
about, we
them?
joked about that for I was the thermal lead for his for Mark Kelly's shuttle mission. And it's like, how do we know?
How do we
that
know it's Mark and not
that it's
Scott?
him?
We should give one. Can't we put a bell on him or something? Tattoo something on his face, like a Darth Maul thing, just so we know.
They
it's
have to
always...
wear a Thing 1 and Thing 2 shirt. Mission Control voice, Ed Harris.
I forgot about that. That was.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a great little piece of stunt casting. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, he was mission control.
Yep.
The one thing I will say also,
But Gene never talked to the astronauts. They should have
Right,
actually gotten.
they had a
Yeah.
cap.
They should have gotten the guy.
They should have gotten an astronaut from a different movie. They should have gotten like Kevin Bacon.
Clint
Yes,
Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Clint Howard, right?
Sigh. Yeah, man. Gravity is what it is, and the problems that I have with it are all problems where it's like.
Dot and Dolly, there they are.
I feel like I'm posturing by having these problems where it's like this movie is so goddamn unbelievable that it's like though that it's just something about that was just kind of didn't seem perfect.
Yeah.
So I am entitled to a movie that's better than this, and I honestly can't stomach the idea of endorsing this one. I couldn't do it. It's like the problems you have with it is like, get over yourself. Who cares? I think it's awesome. So glad it got made. Hope it inspires people to make good spin-offs. But I'm sure this is the sort of thing where the amount of work it goes into making this movie, people don't take that on lightly. Like, oh, we should just do what Gravity did. No one comes to that decision like, oh yeah, we should totally do that.
It's kind of like
they're gonna
Airplane
take-
2, where they just do gravity around the moon.
Yeah, well, that's the joke I was going to make. I'm like, they're not the lesson they should take is that if you make a movie about characters and you're telling a story and then spectacle is great, but this is all centered, like you said, it started with theme and it started with all of that. But the lesson they're going to take is someone write me a script with Julia Roberts on the moon. Like that's the next thing we're going to get.
Well, hopefully,
Plate dimensionalization lead.
yeah, that's important, guys. Hopefully, what is the result is that the reason this movie was difficult and took 4 years to do is because they had to invent the technology in the first place.
Yeah.
Several times.
Several times. But that part is
Which is also the
done.
reason that space is difficult.
Yeah.
That exact reason.
Yeah. But that is, that
I'm
work
sure
is
they
done.
had
That
the
doesn't have to be redone.
Yeah.
I
and
like
so
that they have
it's
a head of
hopefully it'll be
shading.
easier.
Like that's
Oh, yeah.
remarkable. Like
I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
I'm sure they had the conversation like, should we just try and should we just go to space? Because this it's probably cheaper if we just
It
go
really
to
like
space.
10 years from now, it would probably be cheaper and easier to shoot this movie
Yeah.
in space than. Did I ever tell you my when space tourism really takes off? My idea for a space tourist trap
No.
that I want to make happen.
Is this a Futurama joke that you're about to do?
I mean, it would be in
It
place
would be
in
on
Futurama.
them, yeah.
It would be on Futurama, kind of joke. You know the Escher staircase drawing.
that's funny.
I want to build that in space and just like cover the whole thing in Velcro so you can walk around with Velcro shoes.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. Brian,
Yes.
Gravity.
Yeah, it's what you said. It's like there are quibbles, but I feel like an immense snob having any quibbles whatsoever. Like we didn't even talk about the debris actually changes direction, which
Shut up.
I was actually really proud of myself for noticing that and understanding orbital mechanics enough that I could go, hey, I noticed that. But that's exactly the effect. It's like anything that you actually spot, good for you. But if you actually take issue with it,
Good for you, asshole.
yeah, good for you, asshole. And I say that applying it full well to me too. And then everything we already talked about, like the first 5 minutes are Clooney's performance, but other than that, I mean, it's superb.
Dorkman Scott,
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. It's
just for once, say something nice about this. will
like you said. I think this is going to have a much more profound effect on movies going forward than Avatar did. It's not quite the cultural event that Star Wars was, but like I said in our best of 2013 thing, I feel like watching this movie felt to me like it was probably very similar to the experience of seeing Star Wars for the first time, of watching this and going, wow, they're doing something that nobody has ever done, and movies are not going to be the same after this. Because like you said, just the fact that this kind of production is now in people's minds. It's been invented, and now people are going to go, ooh,
This is something we can do.
this is an option.
Yeah.
Mi mama,
is going to
gracias.
change things.
Oh.
So,
Wow, look at the thanks. Guillermo del Toro, James Cameron, Fincher.
well, Guillermo del Toro is Quaron's best friend,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Oh, do they go and like do laundry together and like?
No, they're
That-
rich.
those
They have people
two-
who do laundry
They-
for them.
but they're like
Those-
buddies.
those
they
two
go to the
and,
zoo together.
Those two and
Me
Inarritu,
and my
those three are very close because they all came up.
Who's the third one?
I probably mispronouncing his name, but Inarritu.
Inarritu?
He made Babel.
Oh,
and,
okay. Yeah.
So that's so they're all close and they all kind of talk about each other's movies
And go to
stuff
zoos
like
together.
that. And, yeah. I don't remember what I was saying, but just Gravity is awesome, and I'm glad that it exists. And yeah, it immediately became one of my favorite films, and that's the end of my story.
I liked it.
Thank you.
Can you tell again? Do you have time?
Yeah.
Anthony, thanks so much for coming out, man.
Oh, absolutely.
This was awesome.
This was awesome. It was good to see this one again. I love this movie.
What are there? You talked a lot about how it was received and how you're anticipating it. Are there things about this movie that you particularly like, above and beyond where it's like, okay, here's the premise, but some things that they handled in certain ways where it's
Honestly,
like, that was really cool.
You can't overestimate how nice it is to see an accurate representation of the space station. Like you grow up with a vision of what space is supposed to be like, and honestly, a lot of the things we put in space just don't follow that. And the idea that they wanted to put the effort into this to make this a story with somewhat of a realistic setting is important, and I think it aids a lot to telling the story. And the fact they didn't take too many terrible liberties with that was good to see.
Where if you're gonna have technobabble anyway, at least have it be real technobabble.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, seeing the destruction of the space station, not pleasant, but you do what you have to do, what you always do, turn death into a fighting chance for life.
In terms of I was gonna
the
say
fact that this you made a really good point there that I want to make sure we hit is the fact that all of this was specifically in service of telling a story. They had the story first,
Yes.
and then they invented this entire new world of filmmaking and all of this other stuff in order to most effectively tell that story.
communicate the
there
theme.
were-
as opposed to Avatar, which wanted to invent technology, and he just made up a story to excuse it.
Yeah, there were easier ways to do this movie, but they wouldn't have been that good.
Yeah.
Alfonso built all this technology and spearheaded this entire giant project in the service of the theme obstacles.
Also, before we go, I did just want to say, you're talking to Trey before we came over. He just wanted me to make sure that I said that he likes it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he hates it. I was
No,
like,
he wanted me to make sure that we got that in.
yeah, man.
Trey likes this movie too.
I kind of want to just keep talking about space stuff. I don't want to.
What you thinking about?
I don't want to stop. Yeah, man. Gravity, awesome. Thank you again, Anthony, for coming out and hanging out
my
with us.
pleasure.
It was informative and fun and funny. And thank you for telling us all those state secrets. By the way, that was cool.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was great. It was
Yeah.
great to tell you all those things. And to the folks out there, please support your local International Space Station.
This has been What Are You Doing Movie. You can always find more episodes at friendsinyourhead.com. Go to the forum, involve yourself in the conversation. It's a wonderful community of people. It's growing every single day. Twitter.com/friendsinyourhead. friendsinyourhead@gmail.com and facebook.com/friendsinyourhead. Just keep type that stuff
Just
in
Google
anywhere.
it.
Just put it anywhere you want to put it.
Or that.
Go to the store, buy our shirts, like my fantabulous Tokes and Stokes shirt that I am now wearing, as well as others that have logos and things like that on them, funny things we've said, and other parts of the merchandising world that we're connected to.
And go online and look up the word "spot the station" to actually see the International Space Station, and make sure every night that it hasn't been gravitied.
Holden Hill design and maintain the website. And until next time, my name is Teague Christie.
Brian Finifter.
Mike Scott.
And special guest Anthony Varia.
Is that your first name?
Special guest.
This is German.
Thank you very much for listening. Good night. Good morning. Good night. Good morning. Good night. Good morning. Good night. Good morning. Every 90 minutes. Good night. Good night.
I get it. It's because orbits.
It's for a spotless, clean feeling, no matter what. Hi, chat room people. Hey, party people. Check
Hello,
this out.
chat. What are they up to?
We got 23 people in there. We had like 30, over 30 a little while ago.
Oh. Yeah, but anyone important.
Oh, can I name the font? It could be any of a couple of them. They all have. It's kind of a standard looking. It's somewhere between Futura and 20th Century, if I had to guess. Those are two different fonts. I'm saying there's an imaginary spectrum.
On the scale of
The R is probably a giveaway, whether it connects or not, but
Yeah.
I don't know which is which.
I-
So
Probably Futura. If anyone wants to tell me, I'd be interested to know.
It's got great kern. It's got some real nice kern.
Yeah, man.
I find that card excessive.
So. So yeah, man.
I always feel satisfied after seeing this movie. It was like, yep, that was great.
I want to keep talking.
It's
about
like it's the
space.
movie equivalent of being sushi fool. It's
Yeah.
like, ah.
Mm. Don't have to do it all the time, but sometimes you just want to. You just need it.
Got to stretch the old stomach lining.
Absolutely.
Distend myself a bit. Yeah, man, this movie. Well, this was all we kind of had planned for.
Yeah.
Anthony was in town, so it's not like we're doing a second movie.
Yeah.
We're doing Titanic right
And
now.
I'm just gonna spend the rest of the day thinking about if I was in that position on mission control. Oh my God, what a bad day that would be. What would what are the conversations that take
Yeah, that's-
place after we
that's-
lose communication with the vehicle?
That's the alternate. Never mind the guy in fucking Antarctica or wherever Ananganke is. Like
the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern version,
Yeah.
where it's just
Never mind
what's
him.
happening at the same
just
time.
what's happening at mission control. Like,
Yeah, my closest experience to that is we were doing software upgrades about a year ago on station, and the command and control computer we uploaded new software to it. We swapped the computers to put the new software in place, and something went wrong, and so we lost communication with the space station for about an hour and a half. Well, actually, it was 2 orbits, so it was 3 hours. So for 3 hours, we would periodically, basically within that computer is where we tell the station, hey, point your antenna to this satellite so we can talk to you. So without that, the antenna is just kind of freewheeling and doing its thing. And so we don't have any communication with the vehicle. And so there were times when we just got lucky and it just kind of came into view and we get little blips of data. but because the computers were having problems, the computers were basically just spitting out lies, and it was like you couldn't trust the data that was coming down. And finally we got in contact with the crew. The crew calls down and says, well, we're fine. I mean, everything's pumps are still running, everything like that.
Everything's fine.
You guys
Here,
basically,
how are you?
as if to say, we know you guys are probably pretty worried, but A-okay up here.
It's like they're calling their mom.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was reading a quadruple failure. I mean, it has to be instrumentation.
So how did it end up resolving itself?
Oh, we basically had the crew once we got over. So our standard way of communicating with the vehicle is by using the tracking data relay satellite system, which is 3 satellites in geostationary orbit that we talk to the station through.
Cool.
And then what we also have as a backup to that is the Russians do it the old-fashioned way. They have ground sites with VHF or UHF or something like that. We fly over there, and they can contact that. And we can, just as the Russians ask us for permission, hey, can we use your satellites? Every once in a while, we can say, hey, be a buddy. Can we talk on your system? And so we patch in.
Can I borrow your phone?
There. So we call basically, yes, the equivalent of, hey, Moscow, can I borrow your phone? And then we called them and through that system and said, hey, run these steps. I mean, they have procedures on board. We do. So their time is important. We want them doing as much science and as little maintenance as possible. Stuff we can do from the ground, we do from the ground. But they are all trained in how to recover from these type of things. They've all run these procedures. And so we can just say, we want you to perform, 2.100 in the communications tracking book and steps 5 through 8. And they do that, and poof, all of a sudden, all the data you ever wanted. So, I mean, they have, like I said, there's that graphical user interface they have on a laptop, and they just pull it up, and I want to work on this system, and I want to do this to it, and it's the same way you start up a pump or turn on the electrical power or turn off a light.
Is it at this point for you also Pat and the day job that your past moments of like, I can't believe I get to do this shit, or have there been moments?
No, I'm never past those moments, and I think folks do get past. I think there is a tendency for folks to get into that. I have been fortunate in that, especially, I love, a lot of our job is not working console. A lot of our job is planning in the office, updating procedures, making sure things will go well the next time that we do a thing, a Soyuz docking or something like that. I like to work as much console as I possibly can. I'm working console next week, and I'm very excited about it because, you get to sit in a room and you get to have an effect, and you get to watch things, and you get to see, if nothing else, you get to see out the version of seeing out the window, and the cameras are on pointing outside. There's nothing that makes that feel any less cool. Now there's a humdrum aspect to the job. There are days when I don't want to get up as early as sometimes I need to and go into work, but those are fleeting. It's you shouldn't get used to it, and I've always maintained that. There is still the part of me that, even though I have an astronaut in my family, I see an astronaut, I'm like, that's an astronaut. Like, that guy goes to space sometimes.
Holy smokes!
Yeah. Willikers.
Williker, Batman.
That's crazy. That is so cool.
Yeah. No, it never gets old.
All right, folks. We're going to call that a day. That concludes our broadcast day. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time we do a thing. As of this moment, I don't even know what it will be. We still haven't done Dorkman's curated movie yet.
No, I'm still debating.
Still debating.
I said Jackie Brown, but maybe I'll make it Mario.
Oh, God.
Wow.
For Hoskins, for Bob.
Uh-huh. Can we just pour one out and do Jackie Brown?
Can we stare at a blank screen for 2 hours, and that can be our tribute to Bob
It's
Hoskins?
only
Wait, the
85
one with,
minutes.
is it the one with Leguizamo and everybody?
Yeah, and the weird Goombas. with
I
the small heads.
love the cojones of ending that movie with like a cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
they were like,
but wait,
yeah, we're gonna do
yeah,
this.
we got
Wait till
We
the
got a
second
sequel
comes out.
coming.
we got this.
Oh, man.
So many
I
questions
will.
you guys have.
All right, if I do a commentary for that alone, will we put it up? Because there's got to be a commentary for that movie.
Yeah, no, I would be happy to do one.
No, but I
Okay.
think that there are a lot of people on the forum who would just love to hear you go crazy in a room alone with them.
It's like,
Yeah, it's true.
I just like-
I'll get drunk too. I'll do it.
we've replaced the entire panel of the show with Dorkman's Folger Crystals. We've given him a bottle of vodka and Super Mario Brothers on loop. Let's see if you can tell the difference. Cool. All right, guys. See you next time. Dorkman, don't forget your Tokes and Stokes glasses.
Oh no, I stuffed him in my bag this time.
Cool. Goodbye, folks.
Alright, you want to get food?
Now we're done. Woo! Great show. Oh, it's the blue repairs on the piano.
It's very well wired since we
Boogity.